What would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life?
Welcome to the Datsusara podcast.
If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing.
For me, free speech is beyond a political issue. It's actually a way of being. So my girlfriend asked me the other day, she said, "You're a complete open book. Do you think the world would be better if everyone was a complete open book like you?" And I couldn't honestly tell her yes, because I don't know. That's a lot of variables to start tweaking. Yes. But the way I look at it is I shouldn't be afraid in the first world to speak my mind.
Yeah, I'm with
once you cave to these little fears, and you give another one, you give another one, you give another one, and the next thing you know, the Nazis are marching by your window, and you're like, "Oh, it'll pass."
Yeah,
it'll pass, right? No, you got to always hold yourself to that first standard.
Yes, I like that. Well, we will definitely touch on some of that, and I am just gonna, with that, I might even leave that in the podcast because that was a good little intro thought. Welcome everybody to the Datsusara podcast. As you know, I am your host, Chris Odell, and here we have Lee. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is it it's Mellor?
Okay. Mellor.
Mellor.
Right.
Okay. All right. Got it. And you do a lot of things. You seem like probably a pretty busy guy because I believe that you're teaching at a university. You've written some books. You're running a podcast. Tell us about sort of, what's your profession? What are you doing these days?
These days, okay. These days, it's actually a nice. Okay, well, I can give you the quick bio.
Yeah.
So I'll leave out all the teenage garbage. That's novel in itself.
We'll make it there.
Went off to university to do a BA in history. Loved history. This was in Montreal. Unfortunately, really liked to party and have fun too. And I was playing in a band. And what we had going on in Canada, and I imagine it was happening in the States at this time too. So this would have been around early 2000s. It was like they called it alt country, like a revival, where things were country, but they were kind of cool country. Yeah. It wasn't like new country. It was more in the tradition of, say, Graham Parsons or Steve Earle, or a lot of surf rock elements and psychedelic stuff incorporated into it. Nice. And so I was doing pretty well in history, but I spent probably a bit too much time on my band and partying. And then the next thing I knew, 2009, I was out of school and I was dealing with some health issues, and I was kind of couldn't work for a bit, and I went, well, what am I going to do while I try and resolve these health issues? And my grades they'd sort of started off really great in history and then gone down the shitter for numerous reasons, but related to health issues. And I went, okay, well, what am I going to do while I sit around waiting for all these appointments to try and figure out why? I had like this nerve pain condition that never got fixed, but at the end of the world, right? You're 26 years old, and funky stuff's happening with your nerves and twitching and burning. Yeah, you start going, shit. Better
freak me out. Yeah,
it freaked me out. It really was like someone grabbed me, then they said, "Here's hell," and they put my head into hell, right? But that was an experience I didn't think I'd make it through. I made it through and it made me stronger. So that whole idea of like descending into chaos, and needing pain to become stronger and tragedy, it is true. And I'm a living testament of that. What I did right was, because I am someone that always...
Hold on, everybody. That's my dog, and someone ring the doorbell. Give me a moment. He was sitting here all peacefully. I thought that was going to be easy, but all right, he will go guard the domain now. Sorry. So what did you end up doing?
I remember.
So let's see. So your grades were doing well, and then they went down because of this. And...
Back to pick up. What I did right during this time is I had every excuse just to lie around, take bags of pills. I mean, they're giving me Valium stuff that would just knock me out. And, to spend years essentially medicating myself and feeling sorry for myself and terrible. And I'm just not that kind of person. No matter what I do, I have to be industrious, even if it was like in my mind at that time, my last work, it had to be something like that. So I wanted to write a novel about a criminal profiler who chases serial killers in Canada. And I still want to do it a bit because it's a cool concept, because Canada, it's a bit like the United States in that it's very regional. So if you have a criminal profiler in, say, England, there are districts and stuff, but it's not a very large country. But you do it in the States, or I'll give an American example. You can have the Badlands, or you can have, the New Mexico desert, or you can have surfer culture in California, or the Oregon redwoods, or New York City, the Big Smoke, all that stuff. And so many areas. And Canada's the same way. And I thought, well, I'm going to write this novel. But in Canada, unlike in the United States, at that point in time, there were only about 2 or 3 serial killers that the public was aware of in Canada. And I'm talking about like the vast majority of people. I was like, there's got to be more than that. And what I don't want to do is accidentally rewrite someone's tragedy. So let's say I was like, there's a child killer in Montreal, and then I wrote it, and then it did turn out to be a child killer in Montreal, and someone came at me with that, I'd be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, right.
Started just with that, so start to look it up, and I go, oh, wait, actually, it's not just this guy, Paul Bernardo, who's pretty much our Ted Bundy, and it's not just Robert Picton, who is sort of our Gary Ridgway. He's the guy that ran the pig farm out west.
Don't know that.
He killed he's been convicted of 6, but he killed between 31 and 49 women.
What, was he feeding them to the pigs?
Sorry?
Was he feeding them to the pigs, the bodies?
You guessed it, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the ways he was getting rid of them. And so that made international news. You couldn't ignore that.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the guy feeding the guy to the pigs.
Yeah.
And then we had the terrible sadist Paul Bernardo, as I said. And then back in 1980, this guy, Clifford Olson, who killed 11 children and teenagers. So that was a big deal, too. And terrible psychopathic sexual sadist. But other than that, if you knew those 3, you're doing well by Canadian standards, and you think that's what it was. And I even hear things going on like Canada doesn't have serial killers. It's a distinctly American problem. Or America and South Africa, certain countries have them, others don't. And it's like bullshit. I just, what's going on? Just started to look. Wikipedia found 8. Like, we're getting somewhere. Of course, then I have to see who they were.
Right.
And then I was like, I got to find more on these guys. And as I'm looking, more pop up. Okay, now 12, 15, 20, 30. And somewhere in that process, I stopped being interested in the novel altogether. And I said to myself, I'm going to write the untold story of serial murder in Canada. Because I'm so interested in it myself. I'm doing all the research. And I want to write anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put out, here is my rebuttal to Canada is a gentle place that never has any problems. And it's since become a national bestseller, which in Canada that only means 5,000 copies or more. But we've only got 30 million people in the country, right? And but beyond that, I think it's been an important book as a resource because then I started to get contacted by academics in the United States and invited onto listservs and have people emailing me. I'd be in the press. And as I was conversing with these people, I realized I know more about this topic than I thought I did. And, I'm not just holding my own in these conversations. I'm actually ahead of some people who are experts. Some people, I'm okay.
Sure.
And at that point, I went, okay, I see an opportunity here. So I walked into the university, Concordia, that I had done my history degree in. And I walked in and I said, look, I wrote this book. I got another one coming out on mass murderers and spree killers. It's coming out in 2013. Is there any way that this can get me into a psychology master's program? I don't want to do the bachelor's again, but can I leapfrog the psychology master's program? They said, no, you need a BA in psychology, but you've obviously got some. So go into this individualized program, and there you can take psychology courses, so you can still learn psychology, but you can also bring in elements of sociology and criminology. And eventually I started bringing semiotics, which is the study of signs. And so I go to this individualized program and met the head of the program at the time, Brad Nelson. He's a cool guy. And I sit down with him and I'm saying, so I want to get in to do a master's. Is that possible? He said, well, you've written 2 books. I've been, yeah, I've written 2, but I'm going to write some more and they're going to be more academic. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You've written 2 books. You don't need to do a master's program. Like, we put right into the doctorate.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I think here's another important lesson for the podcast listeners is that ask. If you know someone, ask. Always ask. And so one of the people I had met and who I'd had some great conversations with on these listservs was Dr. Eric Hickey, who is arguably the global expert on serial killers. And here I am getting along with him, having these good discussions. I had to pick supervisors for my program. So what did I do? I just asked. And he said yes. And here I am now, 5 years later, at the end of the line. I've published 2 textbooks on like sexual homicide and serial killing and such. I'm working on one on terrorism right now, so I'm expanding a bit. I've gone murder, everything, and I'm just about to get my doctorate and kind of step into the, in my own mind, step onto the stage of having done it, being Dr. Mellor. But I also want to say, too, that that's not the accomplishment. The accomplishment was overcoming the adversity and all the little adversities in day-to-day life. And that's what I've learned along the journey. It's the triumphing. You need the dark times. Yeah.
In relation to that, did you find at all, did your medical situation change at all once you sort of got into this and found this, this new purpose or direction?
I stopped obsessing on it. That was it. It was one of those things. I've never been to Alcoholics Anonymous, so I didn't remember that creed. But they grant me the strength to know what I can control and the wisdom to yada yada yada.
Yes, right.
I realized, having visited so many doctors and different specialists who just couldn't seem to get to the bottom of it, or just didn't really care to, that I could either spend years and years and years obsessing over this problem I had, or I could just accept it, live in pain and adjust to it and get used to it, and go on. And here I am. It's 2018, 2017, 2016 have all been great years for me. So with the rest of the world going, what's happening? What's going on? I can't believe it. Things are falling apart. Trump is president. Can you believe it? Yeah. And I'm just going, well, these are all, I had all my hard times and everyone else was doing good, I guess. And so my books are Cold North Killers, Canadian Serial Murder. 60 cases of Canadian serial killing. Rampage, Canadian Mass Murder and Spree Killing, which is just the natural follow-up, a little slimmer. They didn't want the 500-page tome that I gave them first time. But then the academic stuff is where I really think I put my brain to work, and I think I've figured out some stuff that people haven't noticed yet, and I like that part too. Are they going to notice?
Yeah.
Right.
So what got you into all this though? How did you end up being interested in the whole serial killer thing?
I think that most people are, to some extent.
Sure.
There's a reason why you turn on the television and it's crime program after crime program, whether those are fictionalized, or whether they're true crime programs. It would be almost strange if we weren't drawn to something like somebody chopping another person into pieces. Seemingly, at first view, there can't be a reason for that. Yeah. There can't be a reason.
Right. Why would
just the absurdity of the act itself and the pure horror of it, I feel that it'd be weird if you weren't interested in it. Now, when I say interested, I don't mean fascinated. Mm-hmm. I mean going, well, what the hell was that about? And I feel that there's some people that they look at it and they go, I don't want it. I don't want to discuss it. Mm-hmm. I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm not like that. When I see something that especially human behavior, humans intrigue me. And when I see someone do something that bizarre, it's like, I want to know why.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone in that. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot of people that they don't trust themselves. They think if they start going down that path, that, what if it gets in me and I become like that? Right. Or probably, because people are, I think, less moral than we think. They're probably, the bulk of them are more concerned of, well, what will other people think of me?
Mm, sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I just, if I'm interested in something, I do it. Mm-hmm. I have sort of laser type obsession on something. So before that, I had a period where I was really into UFC and really into playing my country music. So I was at one point I was the number 3 singer-songwriter in Montreal just for a year, but I was on the list in the newspaper 3 years in a row. So what happens is I'm a person that when I become interested in something, I don't question it. I just do it, and I do it with absolute obsession. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Sometimes I find obsession can create discipline or something similar to it, so you can actually get through the work and get that done. I definitely have some obsessions here and there. I try to hold on, and when I get onto one, I try to just dig into that because I go, oh good, I'm into something right now. Go as far as I can while it's still an interest. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think boredom, especially in adults, is a real problem. Because once you see how much there is to know and how much there is to do, and like this is the video game and you're in it, that was an interesting realization I had. I remember the last day I ever played World of Warcraft, and I was never obsessed with it, but I had roommates that were.
Oh man!
And watching my little dwarf got the ability to mine gold.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Cool. Now I can mine gold.
Mm-hmm.
Over and I found a spot of gold and I clicked on it, and I sat there and I watched this little bearded fellow, not unlike myself,
right,
taking the pickaxe, going ka-chink.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Pretty soon, gold. And then this thought went through my head. It's like, real life is a game, and you can get gold in reality. I was like, never played it again.
I had to sell my character to stop. That was the only way that I stopped. I had to just go, okay, I'm selling her off because if I don't, I'm going to go, there's no way. But, yep. Good call there, though.
Thank you. And then there was, I think, a period either before that or slightly after where I just did it for a game or two, just some laughs. I made a character who was homeless. I called him, I think it was the Stormwind Bum, because they've got that Stormwind.
Yeah.
And so he just looked like Jesus, right? He was in these rags. And I'd go up and I'd bother people because you can do that group yell function.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pitiful, look at me, I'm covered in sores and boils. I need some money. And they get all mad at me. You play the game like you're supposed to, you fag. Like, with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then one guy came up to me and gave me like a whole gold. And I was like, yeah, And I went into an inn and got drunk, and then I went and slept down at the canal. So you're supposed to play the game like this, but I'm like, no, I'm going to play it like this.
Yeah.
And it was fun as a bit of performance art. And ultimately what I wanted to do was to get a bunch of people on it. So just like flood Stormwind with all these bums.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
And drinking, but of course that didn't happen.
It would have been beautiful. It would have been like San Francisco.
So, San Francisco is not the majestic, fresh air,
not
liberated.
these days. No, it's a little too liberated. Yeah, it's kind of overrun. But you know, we can get into the politics of that fund that created that later. But yeah,
that's encapsulated by what happened at Woodstock, which is. I dig all that stuff, man. The peace and love and expanding your mind and fucking in the mud and stuff. I get that. Mm-hmm. But at Woodstock, they all forgot to bring food.
Yeah.
And water.
Yeah.
And they needed the grown-ups to come in and give it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that's not groovy.
No, not cool. I always find it interesting, too, how a lot of these movements or when people, like, oh, fuck this system, this thing's fucked up, and they slowly end up rebuilding the system. Like, you look at Burning Man, and, when it started, it was like, all right, screw this shit, we're going to start our own little thing, and we're going to have these little tribes, and we'll be cool, and it'll be fine, and we'll just do our art, and everything will be on trade, and it'll be good, we don't need cops or anything. And then slowly, bit by bit, like, oh, what do you know? Now they have, like, little streets that they make. Now they have their own security patrol. Now they've got, this very specific system to barter things. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys you're going right back and still rebuilding, though, the same thing. So maybe you were a little overly critical. Like, I get it. I get why one would want to say, oh, we got to just, knock it down and start over. But it's interesting to me that I find that most of these movements, they end up sort of just heading eventually to the same place, just with different leadership or something.
I think it's because human behavior stays more or less the same, and you have to react to it unless you get in a lot of trouble. So you say, let's just throw a festival where everything's free and great, and maybe you'll get away with that for a year. Or, but in the second year, someone comes and they start waving around a knife, or someone comes and drinks too much, or some girl starts yelling, I was raped, or someone's, boiling fentanyl patches, or all kinds of things that could be going on, right? And at some point you're like, oh, actually, human behavior is rather unruly. They make the error of Rousseau, which is to believe that people are fundamentally, when in a primitive state, they're good. They're not, right?
Yeah.
It's a much more Hobbesian type reality. And people do things which, at some point, you have to check.
Yeah.
And you, even if you don't want to check it for altruistic reasons, you have to check it to cover your own ass. You don't want to get sued because of some bad thing that happened at your festival. So then the burdens happen, there's more responsibilities, and you go, well, I don't know how to do this. And then you go, well, how did these people do it? And just bring that entire system back. And then the realization sets in. That the whole thing that you were fighting existed for a reason in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
I always find it amusing. It's a tough one. Before we get into too many other side subjects, so I should keep on the serial killer thing. One thing that occurred to me when I was thinking about questions to ask you is, how often do you ever find that there are a lot of people that end up starting this because of sort of the postal effect, where they're extremely unhappy in their jobs, or is that usually a one-off sort of killer kind of deal where that happens?
I would say that a number of them, more so mass murderers, but certainly a high amount of serial killers too. It's not being like in unstable employment or being unemployed or losing your job that is the genesis of the whole thing. What it does is it takes a whole system of fantasy and resentment, and in the case of a serial killer, a sexual element, and what it does is it may just flick a switch and activate the machine. And, that's really, when someone feels that we all have like who we think we are and who we ideally want to be. I think most of us ideally don't want to be stuck in some job that we absolutely loathe, or just cast aside from our job like we never meant anything in the first place. And so what happens is that ideal part of ourselves and that actual part of ourselves, they start to widen. And studies have shown that that results in depression and frustration. Mm-hmm. So if you're holding back, let's say 23 years of fantasies of I hate people and I just want to shoot them. Or in the case of a serial killer, you know, women are responsible for everything that's wrong in my life. And I've been spending the past 8 years thinking about how I'd love to just rape one and cut their breasts off, right? The job loss is what, if you watch Mindhunter, they call it a stressor, right? And that's the stressor. So it activates the dormant beast.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Another thing can be breaking up with someone, a relationship fail. There can be numerous stressors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've got like kind of your stressors or your triggers, and then what are the other commonalities that you find amongst serial killers? I mean, what really takes a person to that place as a general rule? If there are any
serial killers, generally when people ask, well, what was that person like? The comment is like, well, they didn't stand out. They didn't stand out as being bad. They didn't stand out as being good. A lot of times people don't even remember them. It's like, well, they were just kind of there. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that is because they're not naturally inclined to see just the value of socializing with people without some goal. So, especially psychopaths, they're going to only want with people that brings them some goal, like whether it's money, sex, momentary feeling of power. They don't understand what we're doing right now, which is just conversing for the joie de vivre, right? Sure. They don't have that. And so there's that element. They're also constantly fantasizing, right? They're they're in a living daydream. So that's why they're detached from society too. So it's no wonder that people in their class don't remember them, because while everyone else was growing up and being normal, let's call him Wayne, was over there fantasizing and no one noticed. Year after year after year after year. And then, commonly you'll see things like certain background, bad stuff. You can just say bad stuff, but it's not always there. Not always, but it's commonly there. There can be genetic factors. We won't get into that. One thing I've noticed too is that many of them are very childish.
Interesting.
I've heard, especially from the ones that communicate, because that's what I mean by that is ones that send letters or make phone calls. I did it again. Or put some manifesto up on the internet before. Now we're talking about mass murders before going on a shooting spree. A lot of them speak of themselves as like boys trapped in men's bodies, or say things like, "I didn't know how to become an adult. I was always being an adult." And really, what that translates as, I do think that because you do become mature through socialization, that's how you get a stable sense of your identity and such. So I think that that may be kind of a reflection of that. So all these things kind of tie in, and these are the common threads of serial killerdom. But this fantasy part is huge. That's where all the weird behavior comes on. We were talking about why would you chop someone into pieces, and there's many explanations for that. Sometimes it's you need to make the person smaller so you can go and dump the body somewhere. Yeah. Most occasions that is. Right. But then people who were maybe thinking about chopping people up because they were angry at their mother or their father or their neighbor who molested them, or all the kids that laughed at them or something like that, or who ignored them, or you take your pick. And they were having fantasies of chopping someone up. And that coincided with their sexual development. Now, what comes with sexual development? Fantasy, right? I don't think I'm saying that I'm alone. And when you start to masturbate, you sort of virtual reality a person.
Well, it used to be, before we had the internet and all that. It's the only thing you had was your imagination.
Oh yeah, I think this generation now will never know the unique experience of scrambled pornography on a pay-per-view channel.
No, they will not.
No,
would this make them less likely to become a serial killer because then they don't have to fantasize as much for their porn?
Well, serial killer rates are going down since the 90s, as have all crime.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Sure. Especially given the narrative about what's going on in the world, you'd think that things shit. Mm-hmm. And you're hearing that from both sides of the political spectrum. Right. They're focusing on different things, but crime's been plummeting since the 90s.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The 80s were really the peak of serial killers, and a lot of people will say, well, what was it about the 80s? What was it about the 80s that made these serial killers? And I go, hold on. The 80s didn't make them. The 80s when they happened. Say they were on average 30 in 1985. The question is, then what happened in what was going on in 1955 to 65 when they were children, right?
Developing, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And just rolling on with this conversation because it's interesting and it's endless. It would go on forever.
Sure.
But sex was more forbidden during that time. It wasn't as on the TV. It wasn't as open. You might intuitively think that, children seeing sexual acts on TV messes with them. But if the sexual acts are consensual and fairly, it probably won't fuck them up too much and even give them some guidance in how sex works.
Yeah.
But if the only sexual imagery you see is on the detective magazine covers that your dad buys, and that's this buxom blonde with a look of fear on her face and a gag in her mouth tied up, trunk of a car. Like you're a heterosexual young boy or adolescent, and this is it. You need something to be aroused by. You need some stimulus, but this is all you got. So now you're conditioning your sexuality through visual and fantasy and orgasm, except there's bindings and fear in there, right?
Yeah.
It's so a lot of about doing this good is actually it's not considering them as being way different than us. It's finding where our commonalities are. So think about your own sex life and how it developed, and then just tweak a few things around. Imagine you didn't have the same impulse control and things like that. I could go more into commonalities. We can move on. Up to you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. One thing that occurred to me when you were saying that, are there a lot of serial killers in Japan? Because I wonder, growing up with a lot of bondage, weird, penises destroying cities and crazy. I used to watch a lot of weird anime, so I wonder. I mean, but they're such generally a very low crime society, but they also are very censored, and then at the same time have this crazy wild anime porn. Has that done? I don't know, any oddities over there?
Yeah, I don't have the statistics memorized, but I would put $20 on them having a big overrepresentation of serial killers. And there's a few countries like that. I think Britain's like that. I think Germany's like that. Japan's one of them. But the thing about the Japanese serial murderers is they always seem to go to the absolute extremes. So when Jeffrey Dahmer did his thing in the States, it's what? He cut men to pieces and ate them? In Japan, it's another one that cut people to pieces and ate them. They're all yeah. It's very odd. Even going back, to serial killers that emerged in Japan after the Second World War. And some of the first known ones, they were in China during the atrocities that happened during that period. I'm not saying that made them, but it certainly may have had an effect. I think a lot of people don't realize how close the Japanese Nanking. They would do things like force Chinese men to have sex with dead corpses, with corpses, really intense stuff.
Man.
And decapitations, and it creates a new norm. And that was something you talked about me teaching. I'm not currently teaching. I've done 2 classes, and once my doctorate comes in, which will be this summer if everything goes right, then hopefully this will be a full-time thing. But I was teaching a class on social deviance. Mm-hmm. And so you want to talk about, safe environments or whatever. I said to them, I went through all this wartime atrocities with them. I said, I want to focus specifically on the rape of Nanking, but you don't need to know it. But if you want to know it, stay after class. But I'm warning you, it's fucked up. But you need to know about it to understand human nature. And I had about 20 students to stay behind just because they wanted to know. And we stayed there for about almost an hour having a really good discussion. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing about academia being that you can't say what you want in academia, you can't teach in the style that you want. Mm-hmm. I was doing that, albeit in one class that started at 8:45 at night, and it was on social deviance. Mm-hmm. I was the conductor, and my students would come in, and we had the best class. They loved that class. And just to demonstrate, they applauded me when I did my final speech at the end of it. Nice. And so I felt great about it. And then within while I was there, living in Montreal at the time, I was teaching at Concordia, where I getting my doctorate. I got the words "free expression is revolution" tattooed across my back on the banner. 6 months later, everything goes tits
crazy.
Up.
Yeah, right.
You got it tattooed on your body, and you believe it. you can see it can go well if the students are cool and you're cool and you're all open. That it can be a really enriching experience, and so you stand by it. Stand by it. And I think it's a real loss that I think a lot of students got a lot of value out of that class, as I had out of classes that I had taken. And I don't need to make the arguments. You know them all. Jordan Peterson, the Weinsteins. Yeah,
I know. I forget. Yeah, Weinstein's right. Weinstein's right. Get it straight.
Yeah, but they've all made the arguments. I don't need to reiterate them here. But the Socratic method, like dialogue between you and your students, and it's key. Yeah. So, I've seen it happen in real time, and I've taught them the worst things. Okay, like you want to get into things like gender identity. Yeah, okay. I've given whole classes on having sex with dead bodies, eating them, and mutilating them. Right? And they just signed up for a social deviance class, right? They it's deviant, it counts. Sure. I just want to talk about it.
Yep. That is interesting. So, do you find? I was thinking about this and I'm gonna jump back into the college stuff because I got some questions for you on that in a minute. But do you find that there's more interest either from men or women on this subject? Because I was thinking about it a little bit, and I know a lot of women who love watching, let's say, crime shows where I'll tune in. Like, my wife loves those, and I'm going, God damn, does everybody get mutilated at the beginning of all your shows? It's like, what? It's always that's pretty dark. But like, if I was to say, hey, let's watch, I don't know, it's something I watched when I was a kid, like Jason or the Halloween movies or something, she'd be completely mortified. Like, why would you want to see that? And but I loved all that stuff. And when I really look back at it, too, I know I must have had a thing for serial killer stuff, because I remember very vividly the Ted Bundy movie that starred Mark Harmon, which oddly enough is in my wife's NCIS show, which is he's actually in that. But anyhow, I enjoyed that. I watched the old Ed Gein movie even in the theater. That was an interesting one. I forgot. I think it was called Deranged, and 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 of course Psycho and all those other fun things. But is there do you find you have more male students interested, females, or do they take different parts of it, that they prefer, or?
Well, I know of true crime readership. It's an 80% female demographic.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Now we could hypothesize why that is. First of all, I think women are more likely to be the victims.
Yes.
So, that's got to concern you more too.
Right.
Women seem to be more interested in people.
Yes.
Crimes are all about people, right? Interpersonal dramas. Third, they're maternal. They're worried about their children.
Right.
Fourth, this is going to be controversial, but I don't think we can ignore it, that there is something... Women like men who are dark and dangerous.
Yes.
And, sometimes they make terrible choices about the type of dark and dangerous man that they like.
Right.
And, that's got to be on their mind, too. And so that can be in the form of the murderer, or sometimes in the form of the policeman. So there's many reasons I can see why this is. I don't understand why everyone isn't interested in them. And that makes it sound like I'm endorsing them. It's one of those things that, like, I would put myself out of work if I could stop it. I would. No worries. I got plenty of other things I could be interested in, right?
Right.
But, I just don't understand why you wouldn't be interested in them. I think to not be interested in them is to miss the essence of it. Is to really not comprehend something about it. It's like the whole, he's just nuts. It's just nuts. They're nuts.
Yeah.
Well, why is he nuts different than he's nuts? And are they nuts? If he was nuts, how come everyone liked him at work and he had, right?
Yeah.
How come he wasn't hallucinating? Is that nuts? How come there are people who are nuts that don't do that?
Right. That's an interesting thing to think about, and even just for your own, not only your own safety for watching other people, but also for watching yourself. I would think, to go, okay, what pushed this person over, and what do I have in me that might be similar, that I should keep an eye on. If perhaps if you have something a little dark in you, and you go, okay, whoa, how did that get to there? How do I go from being me to turning into Cain or something? So
yeah, exactly. And so it brings an awareness to self, but also to environment too. I will walk down the street sometimes, especially if it's a residential neighborhood, and I'll play in my head. I'll go, okay, well, if I was one of them, which house would I pick?
Yeah.
And you start to get to their reasoning. So there's logistical things. So there's like, well, look, that one has a driveway that goes right the way back there, and then it's in shadow. So, that I'm not visible from the street if I get back there, and there may be some point of entrance. But then sometimes it's like something more emotional, where you see the light on in the living room or something like that, and you go, I wonder what's in there. And you might see pictures on frames, and you go, I wonder who's in those pictures. I wonder what's going on in that house. I wonder who those people are. And now take away the simple curiosity of something like, someone like myself who might turn that into a novel, or just run with it in their imagination and do something productive with it, and turn yourself into someone who feels excluded. And when you look in through the window, it's like you're on the outside, and that's what's inside, and what's inside is what you want, but you can't want, because you can't have it. You hate it, and you want it, but you still want it. So you're in this conflict, and it's like, now I want to get inside that house. And this is very much, I think, probably the pathology, the thoughts behind this Golden State Killer, who was recently arrested in your beautiful state of California.
Yes.
And that's a great thing. But he was one of these home invaders. He would go into the houses beforehand, and he would do things like So people would think, well, I'm safe, I've got a gun. But he came in the house and took the bullets out of the gun. He disabled your porch light. He unlocked your back patio door that you were sure were locked. And when you came in from work and the picture looked a little maladjusted, you thought, well, I was dusting the other day, or right? Because you wouldn't come in and see something's moved slightly and go, well, there must have been someone in my house.
Sure.
But that's what he did.
Extremely paranoid. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing too. Is the more you are aware of this subject, the more that you're defending yourself. But you can only live in that headspace to a certain degree. Still, it's better to know than not know. So one of my students was kind of distressed and, did the cool thing, didn't go and tell on me to the administration of the university. It came into office hours and to talk about her essay, but one of the other things was, I just can't believe I'm taking class. I thought it would be like this. And I said, well, can I help you with something? Is there anything wrong? And she said, well, it's like now when I walk to my car in the underground parking lot, I'm always looking over my shoulder. And I said, so you weren't looking over your shoulder before? She said, no. I was like, good. You're just way safer now. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. Yeah. What's the line I love? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
Yeah. I definitely fall on the more paranoid side. I'm always I'm the guy trying to get the the back corner in the restaurant or somewhere where I can view everything. And from playing maybe too many video games and getting into too much of maybe even this stuff, I'm always everywhere I'm out, I'm okay, what's going on? Check the roof, check the and it's ridiculous. Some of it's ridiculous, but I've come to think of it as sort of a fun game, and then possibly something that may save my ass someday in a bad situation too. Is that at least I try to be prepared. Maybe it's an old Boy Scout thing, but that's just to always have that in mind. What if someone got into the house right now? What if just something to be aware of. Could happen.
Yeah. Well. If you don't run those scenarios in your head, you're not only endangering your own life, but you're endangering the lives of the people that you love. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't want to run it so much that you become the monster that you anticipate, right?
Yeah.
Danger of that, too.
Sure.
Where you start to control those around you because you have to have the absolute, everything has to be the way that you say it, and then all of a sudden you're the monster in the labyrinth.
Yeah.
It's But that's an interesting study. I would like to ask a sample of men, 100 men and 100 women, when you go into a restaurant or bar, do you do the following things? And one of those things would be find a spot in a corner with good sight of the rest of the building and cover, right? Mm-hmm. I bet you would find, my hypothesis is that you would find much higher rates in men.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I've yet to meet a woman that had that frame of mind. However, any of them that have had the unfortunate misery of dating me or being married to me, they have eventually adapted to that. So now my wife knows it's well, hey, if you end up on that side because you're sitting with the kid and she wanted the booth, and I'm you're watching my back, keep on that. So she knows how paranoid I am about that. But yeah, it's tough. There's definitely a fine line between being prepared and paranoid and reasonable, and then just being overly obsessive and possibly taking it out on people around you. And yeah, my kid's a bit of a good gauge for that, because if I try and control her every little bit of a thing, you meet resistance and you realize that, well, at some point you could just make things miserable by being overly controlling, and you have to kind of go, all right, let's be vigilant but not crazy about it, just take it a little with in stride.
I think one of the great quotes, and this is actually harkening all the way back, is Nietzsche's famous whoever fights monsters must take care that they do not become a monster themselves, and when you look into the abyss looks back into you.
Yes.
I guess one of the greatest pieces of wisdom in history, even if you don't understand the rest of Nietzsche, is that one line there. That's a lot of what you need to know about how to live your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a good thing to keep in mind, especially when researching dark subjects.
Yeah, definitely. But you have to be able to trust yourself too, right? You have to, sure. And you have to have the constitution for it. People are built differently. Like, there are people who are naturally more sensitive, they really are. And, I don't want to just say that it's all because they're just pussies and they never had hardship. I'm sure there's some of them that are like, but I think there are people that they're more nurturing type people, and they cohesion, and they don't want anyone to feel left out, and they're very sensitive to what's going on emotionally in the room. I'm not like that. And you need both types of people for the world to operate. They have to exist in harmony, and they have to understand each other's roles, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it's very much like, well, look, I want to do what I think is right in the world, but that can be very confusing. A lot of what we think is right and wrong upon examination starts to become very gray. Mm. Yes. Yeah, murdering someone, especially a stranger, because it gratifies you, I still am unable to see that as a gray issue.
Right. Hard to justify that one or rational it out. Yeah.
It's about as black and white as you get. And so a part of this is that, I'm interested in it, and I'm interested in it, I'm able to do it. And there's never a sense of, what am I doing with my life? There's never a morning where I wake up and I don't have a sense of purpose. Because oftentimes I'll feel guilty because I'm sitting there writing a chapter for an academic, or I don't feel guilty about doing the podcast, I love them, but something like that, and I realize that I've got a box full of cold cases that I could be looking at, and I just don't have the time. Yeah. Because you've got to pay the bills first. The cold cases, they don't give you money to do that. Of course they don't. Right? But, you got to survive first. But ultimately, it's like, can I put this to good use?
Yeah. Did you find that anything else changed in your life once you kind of found this direction? I mean, it seems like whatever medical issues you had maybe have been resolved. Do you think there was maybe any sort of tie-in with that?
No, the medical issues, it's mostly spasming and numbness and that kind of thing. It's pretty shitty, man. Chest always feels tight. My leg feels like it's crushed all the time. Mm-hmm. And I've gone for MRIs and stuff, and they just don't find anything. But it's, it doesn't matter whether they can see it. I know it's real. I noticed myself walking slower. I used to be a very fast walker, and now people pass me, and I feel like an old man. And it sucks. Again, you going to the gym and stuff, it's just not really feasible. Like some light stuff, I can go swim. I should be doing that, going for a walk. But I got the body of an old man in my 20s, and you know what? Who said life was fair, right? And that's a big part of it. Who said life was fair? Like, I'm going to complain. You have people born without eyes.
Right. Yeah, sure.
But it takes... but what changed was the way that I feel about it. And the way I feel about it is the result of how I think about it. So, what it is was a major obstacle that I overcame. Mm-hmm. And that I'm fucking strong.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing. And it sounds like maybe you found something to, a la what Peterson talks about a lot, is found something that was worth the pain and the sacrifice to do with yourself.
Right, exactly. And there's going to be more. And I think what I've realized, and what everyone needs to realize, is that life is not going to stop hurting you. It's always going to be challenging you. And the wisdom of Nietzsche was to realize that it's in those moments, without those bad times, to burst out of, you can't really appreciate the good times. So you see a society of pampered, taken care of people. Like that's, sort of middle class. Millennials are arguably the closest thing to that. Mom and dad do everything for them. Yeah, I'm sure many of them do have very real problems, but a lot of the time the real problem is that they don't actually have problems.
Yeah.
Because problems is where you build character and strength from. So what I realized is too that ultimately that I've got to learn to start liking things like an enemy. Like if you get an enemy, enjoy it. If you have a problem, enjoy trying to fix it, enjoy trying to work through it. Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, is a great example of this too. I won't give the plot of the book away. It's very lean. If anyone likes this way of thinking, pick up The Old Man and the Sea, and it's very much along these same lines. The beauty is in the struggle. The meaning is in the struggle.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good thing. I mean, yeah, I suffer from a bit of the open book and also the quick to put myself out there, but then I feel very uncomfortable generally when I get into argumentative situations. So I've gotten a little better at it, but I am nowhere at like a Shapiro level or something of going, oh, good, let's argue, let's have a fight. I really admire people that can go, oh, excellent, I have an enemy, and I have, I'm okay with this confrontation all the time. I'm still I'm getting more comfortable with it, and the more armed I am with actually spending time and learning a subject and having, a firm grasp on it before I open my mouth, that definitely helps. But I still get very uncomfortable when I have to deal with that. Like that's why I tend to stay off of certain things like Facebook. For some reason, Twitter I don't get into these problems, but Facebook I get into shit with my friends, and I don't know. It gives me anxiety, and that's something I've been trying to get away from for a long time. So
that's different. So on Facebook, I'm not on Facebook. The reason I'm not on Facebook is because I don't want to be fighting with my friends.
Yes.
On Twitter, I can take the same arguments and I can bring them out to people I don't know. The problem with Twitter is you tend to actually not fight as much as people say that they fight on Twitter because you end up getting locked in your own little group.
Yeah.
It's amazing how
done that.
From James Woods, who I don't follow at all, right? Because somehow the algorithm is selected that people I follow James Woods.
Yes, so you'll still see it. Yeah.
But yeah, Twitter's not. You have to really go digging. You have to kind of look for confrontation on Twitter, And after a while, it becomes like, well, how many times am I going to say the same thing? Yeah, I think cultural appropriation is retarded. Like,
yeah, right.
Dude, what was that thing?
Oh,
again
that thing
today?
with the dress. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Someone who was like a historian. It was someone that I didn't look at their bio, but they seemed to know what they were talking about, like a historian of fashion. I think they were based in France. Looked into it. They realized that particular style of Chinese dress was actually a Western design of it. So if you follow their logic, Chinese people can't wear it. Western. And I got into this with, I don't know if you've met Elio Martino on Twitter. He's a cool guy. He does that.
I do follow him. Yeah, he seemed very interesting.
If I'm half Mexican, so am I allowed to eat a taco? Can I have half a taco?
Yeah.
Why don't we apply it to shit like, if you go out for Chinese food, no one's like, you're appropriating my culture. They're like, yeah, eat, spend as much as possible.
Good. Yeah.
Absolute nonsense as these arguments, and once again, how do these pass the first stage of the test? They're not. I think what it is it's a lot of just repeat what teacher says.
Yeah. And I mean, do you see an overall trend and perhaps a real problem with this, or do you think it's something that's going to work itself out? I mean, we didn't get into the details, but I hope my listeners by now have almost gotten sick of me talking to people about this, so they should be informed enough. But I still talk to people like my good friend Daniele Bolelli, or even my mother's always saying, "Oh, you know, when I was back in the '60s, we were all crazy radical too." But it works itself out, and it'll be fine. You're too hyper focused on this college stuff, and it's not the end of Western civilization, and you really shouldn't concern yourself. And but I can't help but think that from what I've heard from the people who I know who are in academia, that it is a bigger problem, and that it is an overarching sort of, you know, direction to a place that if we don't do something about it, it seems like it could become a real problem and not just something that's going to self-correct over time. I mean, maybe I see some rays of hope, but I don't know. I mean, do you run into people like that who are just completely in denial, or go, "Oh, you're just, you know, you're hyper-focused on it. This isn't really happening. It's some fringe weirdos on the internet, and that's not really going on"?
I may run into less people than you, but
well, you're busy. You actually do stuff, so I have a bit more leisure time.
Well, I'm in this apartment a lot, hammering out dark works.
Yes,
you know, and
in shitty weather. So
yeah, well, the weather, the first nice weather of the day. And I looked at my bank account. I had like 21 cents in there. I'm like, "Oh, there goes that first margarita of the year." I was sitting outside on the patio, but it's a good thing I wasn't too many. But no. What I find is a lot of people who aren't aware, and then I go, "No, listen to me, and I'll give you the evidence if you want." And then they're like, I find most normal people, like your mom and dad, like my mom and dad and their friends, when I'm like, I'll tell them something that is just going around like it's wisdom in radical feminist circles, my mom will go, "I don't know a single woman that thinks that." I'm like, "Oh, they're saying that that's the truth about what's going on." And my mom will go, "That's nonsense." So laugh. She'll laugh about it, and I'm like, "Well, the thing you can laugh, and maybe your generation's outside it, and you won't get the worst of it, but it's coming up, you know." And then just a lot of them, because they're not really hooked, especially older generations of people, because they're not as active on the web in the same type of way.
Yes,
you know, they're still getting their news from the TV. That's so cute,
right?
So,
I know.
And they have no idea that it's going on. So, you know, is reality what comes out of the TV and not what comes out of the computer? You know, that's an interesting question there too, right? Sure. It's like the internet has been responsible for all kinds of deceptions, and it's like, well, no, maybe what the internet has done is made us aware that we've always been deceived, because they were deceiving us back in the days of Walter Cronkite too. Trust me.
Yeah.
You look at all those old newsreel stuff, you know, like "Watch out, Tokyo Joe, here comes," you know, that sort of thing. Like up again, and people are just watching it like So, anyways, I tend to go off on these tangents. No, my point is, no, I either meet people who are like kind of firmly in this camp, but I don't, because we're not in the same circles, but I'm aware of them. I see their effects, right? Yeah. But they can abide me for a minute. Yeah. Not like it's like oil and water. And then there's just a lot of people that I think that History on Fire podcast host, something that I fully agree with him on. He said that most people aren't evil. Most people are weak. So a lot of people, and some of them I consider to be really decent people, but they're weak people. And they'd rather not get involved. They'd rather just, or they don't want to think too much about it. So I meet a lot of people like that. It's not that they actively say to me, "Oh, you're overreacting," but they just don't really comment when I'm talking about it, or I'll get a sense that no matter how much I speak to them about it, they just won't care. Yeah. I'd say that's the good portion of people. So there's these people that have no idea about it, and there's people that have an idea about it but just don't want to deal with it. And then there's the cancer, right, which we'll call that other side. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that are going, okay, well, it's not just in Canada universities, unfortunately. It's creeping out into our, into our legal system. So everyone's focused on gender. I'll get away from that. We have Bill M103, which is a vaguely defined anti-Islamophobia bill.
Interesting.
What is Islamophobia? Like, this is a very complicated discussion.
Mm-hmm.
There are things in the Quran that if you comment on, you could make a statement of fact
mm-hmm.
that all Muslims agree on about something in the Quran or the Hadith, but you say it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it's now a hate crime.
Yeah, right.
And that's why, for me, I take that seriously enough. Like, I want to get over that border. Canada is a great country, but to me, the greatest country is where I can speak freely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having to worry about anything happening. So it's like, shit. This is how it hits home for me personally. So the whole Count Dankula thing.
I was going to bring that up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, yeah. I have a British citizenship still. All my family's over there. I was born in Chester and grew up around Liverpool, and we moved to Canada when I was 5. So obviously, when you come from another country, you care about the people that are over there, and you still sort of see yourself as a bit of a citizen of that country too. And then I'm going, what the fuck is going on? Some guy made a very clear joke.
Right.
And, if you want to comment that's inappropriate or, you're a piece of shit, you have the right to do that. The best thing is? Ignore him,
mm-hmm.
right? But now it's like, being taken to court because he taught in what is, I think, clearly, he taught his dog to react to him saying hateful things because it's irony.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, it's a pug dog, same name as my dog, Buddha, who he trained to do a Nazi salute that he thought it would piss off his girlfriend or be funny to his girlfriend. But I mean, nothing that I wouldn't see a Mel Brooks or a Monty Python or somebody else or Stanley Kubrick in Dr. Strangelove. I mean, you got all these characters that are making fun of that. And nobody, they weren't being fined or put in jail for doing it.
Yeah, no. I guess the more egregious part is, so he says to the pug, I won't try a Scottish accent, but he's like, Buddha, you want to gas the Jews? You want to gas the Jews? And obviously what he means is like, do you want to go for a walk?
Right.
He's done it so many times.
Tone, yeah.
And it's funny to see like such a cute little
right. That's the hilarious joke. Yeah.
Something so hateful. And he even says on it, he says, which I wouldn't have even done myself, but he knew enough to say, I'm not a racist, by the way. I just really wanted to piss off my girlfriend, and that's the joke. It's like, hey, come on. Hey, look. Sick hot, and the little dog puts his paw up, and and then watching her flip out, and then everyone else gets the, it's a laugh.
Yeah.
And no one who isn't a Nazi finds the Holocaust funny, but the joke isn't the Holocaust.
Yeah.
The joke is that you've trained a cute creature to react to something disgusting because it doesn't have the mind to interpret magnitude of that, right?
Right.
But we shouldn't have to take the joke apart. You should just fucking understand it.
Right. Yeah. And
I see that, and it's like, well, that does affect me because, what if I want to go back there? What if I want to go teach there?
Mm-hmm.
And now, Canada too, and how much is this to move? And so, it starts in the universities. It's like it's like some kind of Lovecraftian thing, right? It started in the dark corner of the university when we summoned the creature, the great intersectional, and its tentacles climb out and infiltrate other parts of society, and the next thing you know, the prime minister's up there like, all hail the great intersectional, and everyone's, it's like, no, fuck off. You know, right now I'm very, ironically, I'm very pro. Most people are freaking about Trump. It's like, at least I can still say what I want in the United States and not have to worry about getting fined.
Yeah, there is something nice about that. It's like, as much as you may not like a leader, if we can at least stick to some of our core values, America does have some good stuff going for it. And I used to be very hypercritical. There obviously has its issues, but when you look at things like that and you go, oh, that's a critical thing, that we have a free exchange of ideas that isn't impeded, you know, by people shutting down speech because they're offended or whatnot. I mean, that's when you realize how big of a deal that is. I think it does make you appreciate what we have here a little bit more. And even with something like a Trump, where I don't personally like the guy, I don't agree with all of his politics. Some of his policies are good, some of them aren't. But I at least can say, well, yeah, I would rather have that than somebody in power who's ready to shut down free speech and ready to, you know, go against all these things, like you see what's happening with Trudeau, which is interesting because I used to think of, oh, Trudeau seems like a really nice guy, what a cool leader up there, you know, but you dig into it more and you go, oh man, that could be more of a danger in the long run by far, and it's hard to watch that. I used to want to move to Canada or Europe, and now I'm going, hey, you know what, that's cool. I'm kind of glad I didn't make it. So it's a weird place to be.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that it could be fixed, and then Canada and Europe would still be excellent choices, you know. But what I think is really important to think of is we shouldn't see this as all these separate countries. There is a Western tradition here that's very important, and there's strength in numbers, right? And the United States is the most powerful country in history, and it's a Western country, but it's still a hell of a lot stronger when it's got all those other countries alongside it. It's in all ways, and it's not good to be the last sane person left.
No.
In the right.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It's a battle that has to be fought, and you know, really it comes down to what I'd say is free speech absolutism, which is what you have in the United States, you know. And of course, you can't threaten someone because then you're getting into like violence.
Sure, inciting violence. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
But still, when I think about it, if people are going to make that the issue, like, well, what, you're allowed to threaten someone? Would you say that's okay? If someone made it hinge on that issue, I'd say, yeah, you're allowed to threaten someone because it's that important to keep the rest of it.
Yes. Yeah. That's a matter of not acting on things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I'd agree. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the years to come. And I truly hope that I'm being a bit pessimistic about it and worrying too much, the way that I hope the same thing about environmental issues. It's funny, though, how I've noticed the same people that will tell me that I'm being overblown and a little crazy and hyper-focused on these issues are the same folks that will turn right around and go, oh, climate change is a huge problem, we need to address this, we're going down the wrong path, and there's going to be a point of no return. And I'm going, yeah, you see how it's kind of similar, though? I mean, you know, you may not think about it if you're not dug into that issue, but it could be very similar. I mean, and I'm probably more optimistic on the environmental side, which is odd for a guy who owns a hemp gear company that was very much, you know, founded for partially environmental reasons. But I actually think perhaps we will solve that with technology and just general compensation, you know, just correcting things. But I could see it easily being a similar kind of problem as to what's going on, you know, eroding Western civilization in general. It's a very similar thing. It seems like a small thing, but if it's this continual problem that's arcing in a certain direction, you go, oh, well, if we don't address this, we're going to be hosed. You know, at some point they're going to start making laws that we can't, you know, it'd be hard to get rid of those things and go back.
Yeah. This is why I focused more on the freedoms issues than the environmental issues, and maybe it's just a personal preference.
It's a little more quick cut.
What I see is I see the environmental issues as chaos, perhaps even total chaos. The world descends into chaos. People die, bad things happen, probably to me, also. But I'd rather live in total chaos than under total authoritarian control.
Yes. Agreed.
And the freedoms issue it's the difference between, let's bring this back to the serial killer, okay? Mm-hmm. It's the environment is the difference between the serial killer who kind of just brutally extinguishes your life. And it's sad and it's bloody and it's messy, but it's done, Whereas the authoritarian regime is the sadist.
Yeah, they tie you up in the basement for 10 years.
They want to change your mind so you start liking your captivity.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sense of whoever you are. And they do that by administering pain.
Yeah.
And make you feel bad about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And rather die than be deconstructed in that manner. Be controlled in that manner. It has the best license plates in the world. Live free or die.
Yes, that is pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
It's better than, what do you guys have, the Golden State?
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, live free or die is a statement for sure.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. I know some people will make fun of it, but I'm like, no, that's pretty fucking cool. that's some you get some clear values right there. Yeah, and I'm definitely the same. I've had enough bad acid trips to definitely be more concerned about being under ultimate some kind of weird authoritarian control. That's a worse hell than other ones that I could certainly imagine. So that would be worse than being in Fallout video game land as far as I'm concerned. But but who knows? Neither's good. But we can't even address the environmental issue, let's say, without addressing, I think, you get rid of freedom of speech and these other things, you can't even properly address anything else. You're going to halt progress in so many areas.
No, the environmental problem is something that, like, we could actually bring right up to the forefront if we got rid of these silly social issues about people being offended. We could say, mm-hmm. Okay, let's make this the centerpiece.
Yeah.
Everyone on this side is saying that the sky is falling, and here's their proof for it. What do you have to say about it? And it's like, no, you don't get to just, one side makes their point and then it's over. It's like, no, we're staying on this until it's solved.
Yeah.
We're staying on the solved. And if people became more appreciative of dialogue and following the logic of an argument and actually start to, like, you can enjoy it. You can enjoy watching a debate and not even having a horse in the race. I saw, was it Noam Chomsky debate Michel Foucault? I disagree with them on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I have no horse in the race. I still love watching them debate. Mm-hmm. And so I think the best thing that could happen for Western culture, but it must also, free speech, absolutism must be first, is for us to go to a point where we're watching mature, doesn't mean they can't be funny sometimes, but mature debates, and we're following the logic of them, and we're going, no, they're right there, that guy made an appeal to tradition, or he made a straw man. If we had people thinking like that, that would be a good society. And it sounds robotic and it sounds passionless, but there's no reason that you can't do that and then, go out to a nice restaurant with friends or whatever and discuss it. That's a healthier, more robust society. Mm-hmm. That's the society that I want to live in.
Yeah, that certainly sounds much better, and I think it's the only way you avoid, extreme polarization too, because the more you cut these things off and you don't have this dialogue, as painful as it might be for some, I think you actually just make things worse. I mean, everybody's going to walk into their own camps, and that's that. There's no more discussion at all. We're never going to solve any problems. It's not you can't have a discussion about anything anymore, and it's yeah, it's gonna ruin everything. So kind of have to have that open.
Yeah. What it brings me to thinking of right now is the last podcast I did, which we put out on, I think it was Sunday that we put that out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sunday. And talking about Toronto, where one of these incel Elliot Rodger cool dudes decides to drive his car he killed 10 people. Mm-hmm. So, and wounded, 14 or 15. And so immediately I have a friend who's way farther to the left than me. My friend, he's Polly Whiskey on the podcast. But he's always been fascinated by these incel cultures and this culture of celibates and been following them. And I knew that he was going to come over and he was going to like bring up toxic masculinity, for instance, this concept of toxic masculinity. And I know most of the people that like me hate that concept. Yeah. But the point is, he's still my friend, and there at no point did it get uncivil. I had him over. He gave his point of view. I gave mine. We didn't get vicious. Did we resolve things? No, but we had the dialogue. It's there for people to hear and judge themselves, and if they want a part two, they can have it. But it's all the ability to like, well, he can come into my space and talk about something that I don't agree with, and he doesn't agree with, but then we can start to find through the dialogue what are the parts of it that are wrong, on both sides. And so, and then that's a test there too. It's like, are you willing to see a host of a program invite in a guest that you disagree with? Because they're always inviting guests in that you agree with. Yeah. And then you're fucked up as a viewer or a listener too, because you should be able to have someone in your space and disagree with them civilly without shouting them down or giving them some sort of beat down to the point where it gets out of control. That's just childish. Mm-hmm. But increasingly, people, while I'm on the topic, we're able to do that podcast because of you, Chris, and thank you so much. And that's Sarah for sponsoring Murder Was the Case. Like the first half of our podcast, where we were talking about all the chopping people to bits stuff and why is it interesting. Go check us out on Murder Was the Case. Chris is a sponsor of it, and you're the reason that we can have 4 people on mic now.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
It's been incredible. I recorded one the other day. It's like 5. Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. I'm glad I could help out. I think it's an interesting show. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to too many of them, but I have enjoyed it, and I think you're just an interesting character too. So it's that's what got me into it. I followed your tweets, and we're kind of in the same big greater family on Twitter and whatnot. And I, for some reason, I just happen to like a lot of people in Toronto. I don't know what's although you're more in Montreal, or which is I'm
kind of a drifter, man.
Without giving away your Anyway, I don't know why. There's a lot of people in Canada up in those cold eastern areas that I seem to be getting along with these days, between yourself and Peterson and Jonathan Peugeot and Oren Amate. Love that guy. And
well, a lot of them, I think they're kind of conservatives or lean that way, but a conservative in Canada isn't very conservative.
No. I mean, and you look at something like Oren, I think he's at the same place as like a Dave Rubin or even myself, who used to consider ourselves pretty flaming liberal in some ways, but over time everything shifted in such a weird way that I mean, it's odd. Like, I know even my wife, she goes, "Wow, what happened to you?" And I'm going, actually, my core values haven't really changed. I've always been for absolute freedom of speech, and I've been for all these things, but it's just the playing field shifted so hard. So now I guess I'm conservative. I don't even fucking know anymore. So,
No. You are... what I've started to use, because I like the connotation of it, is like a libertine. Because a libertarian implies that you believe in no economic regulation, which I don't. I think free markets are generally good, but if you're going to think that you need no economic regulation, I think you're a bit of a fucking moron.
Right.
Sorry. But but for me, it's more about the social parts of liberties,
Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly we moved from. Do you remember the conversation? Someone should be able to love whoever they want, and the government should stay out of people's bedrooms.
Yeah.
And that was a very good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that we have homosexuals can get married and such now. And what happened to society as a result of that? I can see no causal link between that and anything bad that happened as a result. It was just a good, noble, classical, liberal
Yes.
revision of something that we had, of a historical bias and hatred that we needed to get rid of.
Yeah.
And then within a decade of that, or even less, it's like, if you only want to have sex with people of one gender, or if you don't want to have sex with people of like all 70,
Yeah. How many ever?
genders, because now the genders can just be made up, so it's just an X. Unless you want to have sex with everyone, more or less,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then you're, and it's like
Yeah.
that. It's exactly
scumbag at that point. Yeah. Right.
right. That's contrary to the line of thinking which led to the liberation of homosexuals. To that whole idea of, hey, what do you care who someone else loves?
Yeah.
What? So what do you care who I love? What I love women, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah. Yep. That is, it's a weird thing how that's happened. You see that in so many areas where it is hard not to think that there's some giant grand postmodernist conspiracy, because it seems like everywhere you look, things have become to a point where you can no longer properly differentiate or categorize anything, because everything's been turned out to be lies or fake, or this is, this person, you think you stand here, oh, it turns out not really, and this is actually the case. And it could be medical things. Oh, guess what? All the medical journal editors are paid off by the pharma companies, so you're not really sure if you can trust that. We're in a weird time where I feel like it's a bit of a crisis. I mean, yeah, there's less crime and we're prosperous and people are doing well, which is great, and I'm happy. I think things are a lot better than I thought they would be in a lot of ways, but it is an odd time where I feel like it's very hard to know where you stand. And so I know for myself, that's why I pick out some strong areas, such as free speech, where I just go, you know what, that one's clear. Like, I don't care what you call me, but this is a value I stand for, and that's that.
Unequivocally, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a strange time though, in a lot of ways. So it makes it tough. I do wonder if it's just a natural thing, or if it was some sort of weird, planned out sort of, like Peterson thinks, some sort of postmodernist thing that crept through the universities and made its way out into society, and now we're all suffering the early stage consequences of the illness of that.
I think disagreed with about the whole 9/11 thing. Was it a conspiracy? And someone made a point about that, and they said it actually doesn't ultimately matter whether it was or wasn't. And when I first heard that, I'm like, what are you talking about? It absolutely matters. And of course it matters. But it's the fact is that what happened after, whether it was planned or not, that part was certainly planned. The whole go into Iraq thing on bad intel and selling it to the public. So whether it was designed, or whether it was allowed to happen, or whether it was an accident, it happened. The problem was in the response to it,
Yes.
And an ill thought out response. And so right now, I think what we have to get away is from the sort of etiology of the problem, how it arose, and we just got to get into the well, how do we deal with it?
Yes. Yeah.
But we don't want to get paralyzed with trying to think of how we deal with it, but we don't want to be rash either. And
right. Yeah.
Life and all its complexities.
Oh yeah. I think that's important on a number of subjects. I used to always say I have a friend, Peter, who's just he's into every conspiracy you can imagine, from Pizzagate to UFOs. But even with UFOs, I go, well, like, okay, yeah, there's probably extraterrestrials, and if there are, that's great, but until there's some meaningful interaction or something that we can do something with, they want to come down and talk, or I can't spend my time anymore other than just a passing fun fascination. I don't want to spend my time thinking about, oh, was that this or that, or could they be hiding this? I'm like, let me know when they're here to have a talk. Like, okay, cool, I can work with that, you know. And there's a number of subjects, and even like the environmental thing, it's very similar. Where I feel like, okay, that's why I personally like to focus on pollution, because that is something solid. You can look at pollution and go, oh, this is definitely a thing. I like clean air. That's cool. Let's stick with that. I'm not the global warming thing. Yes, let's consider that, but if we spend all of our time bickering about whether or not it's man-made or it isn't or whatnot, it doesn't matter. We need to think about what actions are going to be taken because of that, and what things we can point at and go, no, this is for real. Like, there's definitely plastic in the ocean. It's definitely fucking up the fish. It's definitely going to get to us, so what are we going to do about it? Like, let's stick to that rather than arguing over these weird vagaries or conspiracies or anything else that we can't really get a grasp on.
I also am highly skeptical that, like, let's say that climate change is completely or mostly man-made, that, because they're like, it's imminent, and it's like, well, if it's so fucking imminent, you think we're going to get everyone to change in this imminent hair of time that you keep saying is there?
Right.
Because, they're not.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, I've heard arguments where they say, for a lot of these countries, rolling with global warming as it gradually sets in, because it's not going to be like, one day you're sitting there on the beach and the water levels rise 20 feet. It's going to be incremental, right? Mm-hmm. And so people will incrementally adjust to it. And it's not good, but in many countries, especially the developing world, it's been argued that it's a better solution for them to adjust to it than to rip down all of their infrastructure. They've only just started to get on their feet and become, wealthier, healthier countries. Mm-hmm. And if they get rid of that, then they're plunged back into chaos. And if it doesn't turn out to be man-made, or there's something else going on which didn't factor into the theory, then they get double screwed.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's good to narrow, I don't know, the argument to the, real effects of what's going on and how to deal with that, as opposed to getting into arguing over exact theories and I don't know. Yeah, there's so much distraction when I feel like there's so many other concrete things that we could sit and focus and go, all right, well, this for sure is a problem. We all agree on it. We all see it. Let's work on that. But, not usually what happens for some strange reason. So
well, and that's me with my murderers and rapists and whatever. It's happening. It's out there. It's, unless you're one of these fuckheads who thinks that Sandy Hook was a conspiracy. I don't know how you do that, right?
I know. Shout out to my friend Pete there again. I have heard it all, and he's even one of the ones who still believes that all the 1980s satanic panic stuff was actually for real, and that wasn't, just kids being lured, led along and bullshitting, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. So, yeah.
Well, the lack of evidence. So,
lack of evidence. Yes.
Time that the behavioral science unit, now the BAU, behavioral analysis unit, but the BSU under John Douglas and Robert Ressler, the guys you see sort of represented on the show Mindhunter once again. That was their shining time, was in the 80s, and they had lots of funding from the government, and it was like those guys. They have flaws, like if there were children being killed and the government told me not to talk about it, I would. Kind of flaws, right? And they kept hearing everywhere about this ritual child abuse by satanic cults and sacrifices and murders. And they looked into all of it. They didn't find a single incident of it being done on any kind of group level. Now, Is there some serial killer who had the Satanic Bible in his library?
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You'll find a lot more nuts that have like the Turner Diaries or something like that. And The Collector by John Fowles, you'll find that in a lot of their libraries. Great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Yeah, so check it out.
Cool.
But where was I?
The Satanic Panic and all that, and yeah,
Right,
they
but
didn't find anything.
One instance of it, not one. And they had a vested interest in doing it.
Yeah.
So imagine you're like the Anti-Satanic Bureau.
Yeah.
And you have all the interest in the world in uncovering all these satanic crimes.
Yeah.
You don't.
Still can't. Yeah. Yeah, at that point I go, all right, that's, come on. Yeah, it's a tough one. I know. My buddy, I get it. He likes to question everything and assumes everything that they tell us is all lies. And I had spent my time in conspiracies. I was a big Robert Anton Wilson fan and digging in all that, all the subgenius mythos stuff. But I think you gotta, at the end of the day, it's like, if the evidence just isn't there and you can't, then what do you got to work with? I mean, you need something to work with to have a real conversation and address a problem. Otherwise, you're just kind of mental masturbation. So, which is fine. If you know that's what it is and you accept it, that's cool. But
it's a fun topic. It's just that you want to read more of what is known and is reality than what is speculative, right? So, the conspiracy that I always entertain is, I think the assassination of RFK is very suspicious. So if you know anything about that, he was supposed to leave via this route. And at the last minute, the Secret Service men took Robert Kennedy and they said, no, we're going to leave through the kitchen. Now, who happens to be in the kitchen? But this sort of and they walk him right into the assassin who just happens to be in the kitchen. Like, what are the odds? Why guy just standing in the kitchen with the gun?
Yeah.
Does he think, you know where RFK is going to come through? The kitchen. That's where he'll definitely be.
Right.
You know? And it's odd, but but I don't have a theory. I have a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a doubt, but but I think the wisdom is in not filling in all the blanks when you don't have anything to fill it with.
Yeah, and I think it's so tempting to do that, and especially the kind of people that generally get into conspiracy. They want to have everything explained. They don't like the complex nuances and everything, because that becomes a problem. It's people generally who are looking to go, oh, I want to make sense of this. Aha, I figured out this crazy, evil group that's causing all this. And sometimes, it's legit. There obviously are conspiracies, but it's so easy. The human mind, I think, really wants to fill in all those blanks without just going, well, I don't know about that part, but I'm going to look at the parts I do know. So, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't want to be delusional. So,
yes,
if you're entering into a discourse and you're like, absolutely, and like, I think there's like different mental levels. I think there's like one level where you're like, yeah, sure, I'm open to new evidence if I see it. I'll change my mind. People will say that to themselves, but then there's like this sub level, which is like, hang on with everything you've got. And you're really aware of not just that thing that tells you that you're open-minded, but like that core thing down here, like you know that. I imagine those people will come back at me and say, well, what that also applies to you too. But I'm the one making the strange claim that isn't fully fleshed out by evidence, right?
Right.
Although they will say it is.
Right. Yep.
It's what I wanted to I wanted to lighten this up a little.
Hold that thought. I'm going to do something I don't normally ever do, but I managed to drink too much, and I've been about to burst for quite a while now. So I'm gonna make an edit for a change. Let me use the restroom. I will be right back.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No problem. Okay, so the truth is, the answer to the conspiracy is that I'm behind everything, all of it. I'm the devil. He's going to cut this out. He's not even going to notice this.
Good Lord. All right. All right. It might be the first time that has ever happened in my podcast where I hit the limits of my bladder, but you know, when you work at home all the time, you get spoiled on that. So maybe it's just I need to retrain it. But anyway, all right. So I will cut in around here. So we are back. I had my. I'm gonna blame it on the rosé and then the coffee I had before I started before the podcast. So.
Coffee and wine, what does that do in one's stomach? I don't think I've tried that particular combo.
Yeah, you know, I actually have a bit of a sensitive stomach in some ways, but you know, I don't know. It seems to be working. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. The worst choice I ever did, and it was like one of those, it was one of those dark moments where you're like, I just need to get fucking drunk. What is around here?
Oh, yeah.
There was a bottle of wine, red wine, and a bottle of Bailey's. Ooh. And there wasn't enough to finish me in each. Neither.
Yep.
But if I combine the two, there was. And the next morning, oh my God.
I'm
so glad that happened privately.
Yeah. that does sound like a rough combo. Yeah, I started early enough I can recover from this, but oh God, yeah, no, that would be hard. That's no, not a good one.
What I was kind of smiling when you were talking about your friend and aliens, because I love people who love aliens.
Yes.
There's something so neat about it. And I have this dream of I really want to go down the extraterrestrial highway that was at Nevada and going into Arizona or New Mexico or something.
I think so, yeah. I'll say New Mexico.
Yeah. And this whole part of the Southwest, it was the last part of America that they sort of everyone bunkered down in. And well, how are we going to make this unique? Aliens, man, right?
Totally became a thing. It is funny. I love it.
So talking about how in the 80s everything was about our satanic cults, kidnapping your children, and there was also this weird focus on torture too that someone once mentioned to me. I was like, you're right, there was this weird thing with like going into fake torture chambers and stuff in the 80s. I remember doing it as a kid. Weird. So then the 90s came around and it's like, hey everyone, here's David Duchovny, here's the Foo Fighters, you know what are coming? Aliens. And it was great, right?
Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah, there was the whole like the schwa thing that was like that alien head logo. I was into those guys for a while. Like, I don't even know what the hell they were all about or what the company, but it was just a thing. It was out there. Everybody loved it.
Yeah. So I would have been, because I was born in 82. So I was about 12 when Kurt Cobain blew his head off, right? And I remember everyone walking around with those Kurt D. Cobain 1967 to 1994 T-shirts on at my school, and that was just, you know, just when I was growing up. But at the same time, Aliens were coming out, and everyone was watching the X-Files.
Yeah, the X-Files. Yeah, yeah. It was a fun time. It's a fascinating subject. I mean, it's just fun. It's like sci-fi shit. I don't know. It's a good time.
You know what I dearly miss was the original Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, those were great. I know. Yeah.
To the point where it haunts me. So I've tried to download all the seasons illegally from various sites. I can't find them. I can't get it to work. I'm like, fine, fucking pay for them. So then I go on Amazon, and they're like, Unsolved Mysteries, the Alien package, the Ghost package. I'm like, I don't want them in packages. I want
the seasons.
They were structured where you had the one that was vaguely creepy, and then you want the unexplained, and I went, and then you told me that there was some madman who murdered a family and they were always heading to the Canadian border.
Well, and then,
like,
you know.
Don't. And then they'd end on like that. It would always end on a bad note. It's like Lost Loves. You're like, boring. I don't care.
Right.
Hosted by Robert Stack.
Yes.
Remember?
He was great. What a great host.
Walking down a corridor like, hello, I'm Robert Stack. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then they brought back, and I'm like, oh, really? I think that had a big part in my interest in dark stuff, was like watching unsolved mysteries from the age of about 6 or something like that.
That could do it.
Yeah, but then they brought it back with Dennis Farina, who is.
Did that.
Stack. He's not Walking Corpse Man at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they made a fake studio in the background with all these people on computers, like the Unsolved Mysteries team. I'm like, I don't want you to be solving I don't want you to be pretending to be solving the problems.
Right.
I want my walking corpse to come creepily walk towards the camera with an altering facial expression.
Right.
Like, did you know that things happened back then in the day? And I'm going, what happened? What happened?
What?
So that's ultimately my goal, I think, is to, beginning with the podcast we're doing, Murder Was the Case, but to get it up to a level where, like, I bring back Unsolved Mysteries, but it's like a company. It's a whole media empire, right? Yeah. That would be great, because then we can get back to discussing interesting things that aren't about, what gender are you this morning?
Yeah.
Kind of shit, right? Or what we can't say. It's just like, fuck off. Look how interesting this is.
Yeah.
What did happen?
Great.
Like 9. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That would be nice. Yeah. I'm getting definitely very tired at how the identity politics and other crap are creeping into everything. And of course, the more you know about it, the more it makes it even worse, because now even things where I didn't notice it before, now I'm going, oh, fuck that writing. I'm watching writing on something, I'm going, oh, yep, creeping that idea in, aren't you? And I can't help it. So like, god damn it, I made my own damn problem worse by learning more about it. But yeah, it would be nice if we could just get back to interesting things, interesting thoughts, all of that. The human experience, as it were. So, yep.
Yeah, I've noticed it too. I think it is about being aware of it, but it is also there. It's not like we're reading into things. So, I'm trying to think of examples where I saw it. So I went to go see Dunkirk by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't really like the idea of it, but I didn't think they really found a protagonist that you could sympathize with and really root for throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
whatever.
Not really.
It's here or there. But they start it with a government infomercial about how everyone should be included and we're a multicultural nation. And it starts with this little girl running in a hijab. And I'm just going, for fuck's sakes, man, I just want to watch Victory be wrested from the Nazis, and here you are trying to tell me what to think. You know what I mean? I was just like, wow. And then I was just watching the movie the whole time, being like, yeah, that commercial that really pissed me off. And another one I watched was the new Stephen King's It. And so I still prefer the TV movie with Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yes.
You're not going to do better than Tim Curry.
No.
He seemed like
he's crazy like that.
An abusive clown, even if he wasn't a monster, right? Yeah. But so I'm watching the new one, and I'm pretty into it. I'm in the VIP and drinking my little dark and stormy rum and ginger beers, eat chicken wings, like they better be up to the standards of the previous edition. Right. So far, it's okay. I like seeing Georgie's arm get ripped off, and then I'm going along in it, and they've got the whole plot of it is they've got outsiders. They have 7 outsiders, right? So there's the kid who stutters, there's the kid who's asthmatic, there's the Jewish kid, there's the nerdy kid with glasses, there's the poor girl, there's the one I was inevitably the fat kid, and then there's the black kid. They've all got social stigmas, in various in their town at the time that it was set, and that's fine. That's why they self-identify as the Losers Club, and you want to root for them because they're the underdog. But there's this one scene where the black kid is riding his bike, and the bullies grab him, and I think they pull him off his bike or something like that. I've only seen it once, so forgive me. But the other kids notice his bike lying by the side of the road, and they go, "Hey, isn't that the homeschooled kid's bike?"
Yeah, right.
So if you're black and you heard that, just please think of it this way.
Yeah.
If you're there with a bunch of your friends and they're all black, and there's a standout white kid,
right?
And he's homeschooled.
Yeah.
You're not going to identify him as the homeschooled.
No, that's going to be the white boy.
It doesn't mean it's racist to point out that he's black. It's weird to say that he's homeschooled because I'm watching the movie. I'm like, yeah, seems like reality. Seems close enough to reality.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
right. Yep.
There comes political correctness. It's not correct. And after that, I just couldn't adjust. And the other one was the 3 billboards outside of Billings, Montana, which could have been a good movie. Mm-hmm. But the first 45 minutes, like, play a game. Drink every time you see something politically correct or like virtues and police in that movie. You'll be fucking toast by an hour. You'll be done. So
it's terribly frustrating. My wife gets very annoyed at me because I'll point these things out when I see them and go, "Oh, did you see what they just did right there?" And she's like, "Could you just shut up, please? Will you just not? I don't want to know about it." I'm like, "Sorry, I'm sorry. I'll just suffer by myself over here silently." But, yeah, I mean,
when was the last time? I thought of this the other day, and I've been meaning to really talk about it. I think this is the perfect time for it. When was the last time you saw a film that really was like, here's people's boundaries, boom, just pushed it right over the boundary and went fucking deal with it? Do you remember, like, in the 70s, there was, like, The Exorcist and stuff, and people were, like, major crises of faith, and, you know, and they were terrified, and there's all these films like that, like, go watch something like Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs. Like, it's so like, makes you question and pull so many pieces apart from yourself, and it's so in your face. And it was like, when was the last time there was a movie like that? Because it seemed that in like the late 60s, 70s, and to a lesser extent, the good films of the 80s and 90s were all trying to get out of a box and make you uncomfortable. And that's what made them great films. Now everyone's scuttling to get into the box because they don't want you to feel uncomfortable. And that is shit art.
Yeah, agreed. And it bothers me because it like you said, it pulls you out of it a little bit when you see it happening. You go, oh, they clearly tried to do this to make it perfectly evenly diversified amongst the cast and all these things where you can just feel that it was so intentional, and it wasn't just, well, let's have the best actor or let's have the best story. It was like, oh, no, we got to even all these things out and make it perfectly inclusive in all ways, and and make sure we don't piss anybody off and don't, you know, stretch over any boundaries that could be interpreted the wrong way. And it's unfortunate. There's been a real lack of that. I mean, there's a fair amount of things that you can just go and watch for basic fun, but even that, I feel like they just keep pushing it. It's like, okay, we got to make the women seem even stronger than realism here. Like, it's like we can't just have Spartan warrior women. We've got to have an unrealistic level of strength and role situations. It's an odd thing. Like, I'm all for strong women. Always have been. I love that. Like, I treat my daughter like, you know, I want her to be physically aware and adept and all that stuff, but there comes a level where you go, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Like, don't pretend like in every film, like, every woman has an equal opportunity to beat up a man of her, you know, even greater size than her, just because we're trying to say that women are cool and strong. Like, there's certain things where you just go, why are you doing that? You know, that's not even helping women. I don't understand what they're doing there.
Yeah, I think there were a few fringe women in there that could kick ass, and it was believable when you saw, like, Brienne. She's huge, and she can kick ass, but it's an exception, and that's what makes the character interesting. But then you get to see, like, well, what are the other roles of women in this sort of setting? And that's sometimes to remind a husband, like, hey, your family matters more than the king matters. Mm-hmm. And that women have these really strong place in holding families together. And by holding families together at a family level, ultimately holding all things together.
Yes.
And there's so many instances in that show where women are strong without having to defeat men. Now, there's probably more defeating of men than there, in physical combat than there was in a show 20 years before it. But I think it's like a decent level. It's not unbelievable. And the people that do it are, you follow a long arc of them. So like the Arya character, you follow a long arc of her training to be that good. And then you go, that's why she's that good at doing that.
Yeah.
Which is real life. Like, I mean, I rolled as a novice with a woman who would go on to become a professional MMA fighter. And I put my head out, got trapped in a guillotine choke, and stopped. And didn't cry about it. Just realized, and this was going back to when I was, this was like 16 years ago. And just realized I made a mistake. Okay. And then you get respect, but it takes a lot of training to overcome those, just the biology of it. You know?
Yeah. And to deny that's not doing anybody a service. It doesn't. It's not, I don't know, it's not good. I mean, it's like giving people black belts when they, because they paid for it versus because they trained through it and actually deserve it. I mean, you're going to set them up for a bad situation. So.
Do you remember so they had that Academy Awards, and I guess they either, because I don't really watch them, but they either didn't nominate enough black people or they didn't nominate any. And there was this big outrage, and the next year it was like, and all the trophies go to all the black people.
Everything.
And you're like, okay, hold on, but like, what's the percentage of the population? It's 13% of the American population is black,
right.
And it's even lesser if you're incorporating foreign films. So the idea that you might have in their proportion in the population doesn't indicate racism. It indicates demographics. And then can't know they might have deserved it. You don't know anymore. You don't know anymore whether they deserve the award or not, because you're already aware that this is a political act.
Yeah.
That this is a virtue signaling act. So whoever won those awards very well may have been the best actor or actress or whatever the hell they won for at that time, but I can't now see it objectively because you've made it a political issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think anybody that's ever been given something that maybe they didn't deserve, or they got it because of any particular characteristic and not because they earned it out of merit or whatever, you can understand why that's a problem. I mean, it's very unfortunate to see that, and I don't know why everybody's fallen into that, like, and applauding themselves and being so happy that they've adjusted this and fixed it and made everything good now, and I think that's that's the problem. That's why you don't see as many good stories and as many. It hurts everybody because you're no longer judging it by the best of what it is. You're trying to throw in your politics and into things, especially in the world of art. It drives me absolutely crazy. I mean, I used to be a video film guy, and so when I see these things happening in that world, it drives me nuts, because to me these things that we go through in cinema that are going through mythology and important. I mean, especially as I grew up without much of a father figure, so most of what I learned in morality and how to be a man and all these things really came from TV and film, and so when I look out there now and I go, God damn, are there any good male role models left for anybody, or have we just shit all over them because we're afraid of toxic masculinity and whatever? And what are these kids these days? What do they have to look up to? They don't even have a Jean-Luc Picard. What the fuck do they have? Like, they've got nothing, and it's because everybody's too worried about evening everything out and being politically correct and whatnot, and giving not judging by merit and by what's a good story that actually connects people. And it's a very important thing to be able to integrate yourself with your greater world. And if you trash the mythology over some sort of political correctness or whatever it is, you're really going to harm society pretty badly, I think, in the long run. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more, young men going up and shooting up schools and things like that, because they just, I think they're lost in a lot of ways. There's not much for them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there that there's a whole generation of lost young men. And so we agree that the scripts of movies are shit because they don't, because they take you out of the reality of the film, so you're aware of two separate realities. You can't become immersed in them.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue out of the film. So when CG first started, and I watched Terminator 2 again the other day, I'm like, this is a better movie than when I watched it, when I was a kid.
Awesome.
This is an amazing film.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and the CG was great, and it's so visceral, and it's so, you can feel the dust in it and the metal, and never leave that film.
Yeah.
But then, and the original Jurassic Park, to a lesser extent, but still, excellent use of CG. Now, CG is, because it's so easy to do it, it becomes the default. It becomes, well, we could film in LA, but it would cost this much. So why don't we just make a CG LA?
Yeah.
And the reason is because people, no matter how well you think you've made it look real, it doesn't look real. And people pick up on that subconsciously. And so you're watching something and you're like, I'm not watching a movie, I'm watching a cartoon. This guy's running against a green screen. And then that fucks with the acting.
Yes.
Dynamics of the acting, so that's out the window too.
Yeah.
So and then you have all these executives involved. If you look at the golden age of cinema, it was always these genius renegade directors going out and racking up a huge tab, and so you Coppola, Apocalypse Now, and your Hitchcocks, these authoritarian geniuses. The arts authoritarianism seems to have some at an individual seems to be good, but now it's like, okay, we have all these executives that decide what the movie's going to sort of be like, and we're going to test it on a bunch of people who have they're a random sampling, which means they don't have very good taste in art.
Yes.
And I imagine the way that those test groups are run has got a lot of bias in it. So things like, did any parts of the movie offend you? Something like that. Now, you might not have offended you, but you feel like you're supposed to answer the question.
Right.
And so now you've got a bunch of conscientious people, the executives, who are not open in on the crafting of a piece of art. So then you're just in Dale, Jennifer, Todd, and you show them the movie, and their brains are just like, and then you start asking them questions about it, and they give you the answers they think you want to hear. And so then there's like a further butchery at this other level, and then you just end up with this turd, right?
That's terrible.
I don't know what the movies are like in the U.S., but every time I go to the movie cinema here in Canada, there seems to be less and less people.
It feels to me like it's been more sparse. I mean, you have your places where it gets a little more crowded. One of the things that I think is saving a lot of theaters is that, especially in Oregon, almost every theater served alcohol and had a decent menu even. A lot of them had a good menu of food. So that makes it a lot more interesting. That helps, especially for, parents who are going out on date nights or something like I am. That helps. But I have noticed that, it's definitely way more sparse, and I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It seems like they're for sure struggling, and I too liked your point about the green screens and all that. And my example with that usually I feel like people can see well is that you look at something like a Lord of the Rings, where maybe there was CG, but they used it to enhance sets that they actually built, and the actors, I think, had an easier time being out on set and doing good acting in a real situation versus look at Star Wars, which is all the respect that I have for Lucas, and I think even though I do think his storytelling was decent, and people were able to rough on him on that with the prequels, I think if he would have shot that with some real sets and things, it would have been so much better. I think he went full green screen. He was trying to push the technology, but it showed. It just something didn't feel right. And I think that's a big part of why those weren't as successful. Yeah, when you look at the Lord of the Rings, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I love those films, and it's just I not for one moment do I go, oh, that's some stupid CG thing. I mean, it just blends so beautifully.
So 2 points I want to make. The first is I like the Lord of the Rings films too. I was biased by the fact that I loved the book. I read when I was about 10 or something like that. It became like it probably had some role in the formation of myself, but I'm just so lost on it now. But if you can imagine, I was very smart as a child, very literate, and I read it when I was 10, right? Terrible thing to read right before you hit puberty.
Yeah.
But here I am thinking I'm the superior one with my goddamn volume like this one here.
Right.
No one likes elves. Everyone likes Soundgarden.
Sure.
What's a Soundgarden, right?
Right.
Anyways, but my point was I felt that the first film was much better than the second and third.
I'd probably agree with that. I like the first one's my favorite.
So, and here's my argument why. First of all, the plot's better, but it is the most it has the least CG out of all of them. It's the most.
That's true.
So when they're moving through the woods, or when they're in the inn with the shadows, or in Bilbo's hole, everything feels very enclosed. Like it would in medieval times with overgrown thickets and small narrow alleyways. They don't need to make these vast sweeping battlefields,
right?
You know, and it has a quality of fear to it that the other movies lack. So when the Dark Riders are coming after them, it's creepy.
Yeah,
and it's because it's small and it's understated. When things are on a grand scale, it's like less is always more when it comes to creepy. That's definitely, you know that because I bet you're a horror film fan, right?
Yes, well, older ones, but yes, I'm a little behind the times these days.
Yeah, not many great ones that I've seen. The second point I wanted to make was I heard a theory, and I don't know if it's true, about what the Star Wars prequels were supposed to be. And then George Lucas apparently changed his mind. And I believe that if George Lucas had not have changed his mind, they would have been better than the originals. Here's the theory. Jar Jar Binks, the whole time, is like the Sith Lord.
Oh, I read this whole thread on Reddit about that.
And it's amazing.
It's pretty brilliant, actually.
It is. It's the clown. It's Satan in the disguise of a jackass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you watch it, like they show these various things where you know, Jar Jar he seems to have like the Force leap. You know, for some reason he can leap up into the air. Yeah. Distances other people can't. And what was the other one? Yeah, when they go down into the underwater world, they're all the whatever Goombas or what are they called? Gungans?
Gungans, yeah.
They all have this strange reaction to Jar Jar Binks. Like, watch it with that framework in your mind, and you're like, why are they acting so like they're scared or intimidated by Jar Jar? And then Jar Jar, all through the films, is undermining the Jedi, and he's planting poison. Here's point where people hated the character, which to me was a resounding success. They hate the character. He's so goofy, they hate him. That means they don't suspect a thing.
Yeah.
And then, so if it was true and George Lucas listened, It's like, okay, guys, no one likes Jar Jar. We'll just get Christopher Lee and make him Count Dooku or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It could have been brilliant. It's one of those things where you wish you could go back and just change it. You know,
Yeah.
you ever see a TV show like that where you're loving your TV series, and then all of a sudden, like, oh no. It's like this flagging erection. Like, it's like you're in the middle of this wonderful sex, and you're like,
like, oh man. I have noticed that a lot these days. It's oh, hold on, you're lagging out again. By the way, I apologize to the internet audience here. Every now and then we get these little lag outs. It's probably because I'm in a bedroom way too.
You lagging on me. I was trying to smile through it.
Oh yeah, no, well, good. We're both doing that. Who knows how to look on the feed when we're done? But anyhow, but yeah, you know, I've noticed that in a lot of TV shows these days, where I feel like people are so morally and value ridden or lost that it's funny. I'll watch a show that'll be good for a season or two, and then all of a sudden they give the characters so many flaws and so many shitty things that you can't even like them anymore. You're like, well, this was great, and then where are you going with this? I've seen that so many times where it just like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, little flaw, oh, no, okay, now that, like, who the fuck, like, why do I even care anymore? Like, why do I give a shit about this person at all? Like, where did you go with that? You just wrote this in because you didn't know. It's just bad writing, really, is what it is. Just people don't know what the fuck to do with themselves, and maybe you've got a bunch of young writers who don't have enough life experience. I know there's a lot of that too, from what I talk to, and my friends who work in Hollywood are like, oh, there's a ton of really young writers who are, you know, coming in and taking over, and probably they just don't have the ability to really see that far. But who knows?
How the hell did they get there and not me? I'm a good writer,
right? Hey, you gotta wonder, yeah. And like, why isn't Dan Carlin running the History Channel? I don't know, but
why is there history on the History Channel? Mm-hmm. And if there is history on the History Channel, it's always about World War II. It's like, you know, there were other wars.
Well, it used to be. You know, it's funny, I used to complain about that all the time. I would love to go back to that now, because you tune in now and you're like, what? This isn't even history. Like, it's all just a bunch of reality show crap and whatever, and you're going, God, please, just go back to being the Hitler Channel. It's okay. Like, I'll just, at least that was actually history, something, interesting, but... Yeah, it's I don't know, but then again, I'm a big cable cutter now. I haven't watched normal channels in forever. I just do stuff a la carte. So who knows?
I don't know if you've got this channel in the States, but we've got a channel in Canada called Bravo. Do you guys have that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've had that for a long time. Yeah.
So Bravo was originally conceived of as like this high art channel.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
You go to Bravo and you can watch like ballet or some little European film that. Elsewhere, and you just sit there feeling dignified watching Bravo.
Right.
The other day, because I'm always out of bed after my girlfriend, and I walk in, and she's been a sweetheart and made breakfast, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And so I sit down, I'm eating, and I just hear meh, 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 coming from the TV. I look up, I go, what the hell? I go, it's Real Housewives. She's like, yeah, and I'm like, it's on Bravo?
Oh God. Oh, help us.
That's like the rape of a child.
Yeah.
It is. It's like you took something and inverted it.
Yeah.
You took this, what was supposed to be this highbrow, like pretentious, yes, but highbrow channel.
Yeah. Like art.
Threw in these Real Housewives.
Yeah. They just gave up. They're like, that's what sells. Yeah. No, I constantly lament the loss of many a good sources of entertainment and decency. I don't know. Yeah, it's just, no, but it's far and few between to get a good story these days, and good writing. And also, I treasure the things I do find. I mean, where it's weird because we're in like a golden age of all these great TV shows that that at least you can do them now, because a lot of people have turned away from the movies because they were having a hard time there, so they're making these long format, season long TV shows, which are great, and there are a good amount of them, but the ones that are truly written well, the ones that you'll remember 20 years from now because they changed your life, I think that's still lacking severely. So
yeah, like I said, there's a flagging erection during sex factor to many of them. So you're like, oh man, like I can't wait till season 4, and you're like,
yeah,
this season 4.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that was the most egregious to me was and I had to struggle to give this a chance in the first place, was Dexter. The good guy serial killer. Then enough people told me that it was good, and they're like, no, there's this ice truck killer, and I was like, okay. And so I started watching it, and I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, it's all right. I like this show. Season 1 was it lured me in. Mm-hmm. Season 2 was great. Mm-hmm. Season 3, it took a little bit of a different angle, but it worked. And season 4, where John Lithgow is the Trinity killer, is completely dope. Now, no, there's no serial killers who do that sort of thing. They kill in a trinity of different MOs, but I don't care at that point. Ending of that season, you're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What's going on? And then you're like, I can't until season 5, which surely must be the final season of Dexter, because everything that happened in season 4 shows that the plot is naturally hurtling towards this conclusion. Mm-hmm. And then season 5 starts, and your stomach sinks, and you go, oh my God, all the loose ends, they tied them up in 10 minutes to make them go away. They're doing this to just make more seasons to sell product, right?
Yeah.
And that was the one where Dexter, he'd been seen, like the John Lithgow's whole family had seen Dexter.
Right.
And so like, oh, they're gonna realize that it's Dexter.
Yeah.
And this would have been the great natural ending right there in season 5. And Deb, who's Dexter's sister, has to choose between her one remaining family member and her job, which she's dedicated to as a police officer.
Right.
That is like the proper way to end that tragedy.
Yes.
And and it was all heading there, but no, you don't. You just go, well, we need to get 2 more seasons out of this because of money. Crap.
You're making me feel a lot better about stopping after season 4, because I finished season 4, and then for some reason I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I can't, I don't know. So that's good. All right, I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, what was another one? I feel Game of Thrones has, since George R.R. Martin stopped writing for them, that's veering off.
Probably.
At first I was in denial.
Yeah.
And then I went, every time Jon Snow is in battle, he's terrible, and he somehow managed to get completely encircled by the enemy. And then here comes fill in the blank.
Right.
It's happened 3 times now.
Yeah.
And I understand they have to use CG in the show once again. Of course, they don't expect you to get real dragons and such, but I'm seeing a lot more CG than I saw in the first few seasons of it.
Oh, yeah. In fact, even the first few seasons are almost like, it's this painful, oh, give me some magic, give me something. Because if you, when I first watched, I had to watch the first couple of episodes more than once, because I tried to watch the first episode too when I was kind of half distracted. I was doing the thing where I did for a while when I first had a smartphone, where I'm like, I'm gonna kind of dick around on the internet, and then I'm gonna look up, and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking, because I'm a film, video, cinema guy. I should know better than to not give my complete attention to the art. But I was doing that, and it was like, that is not a show where you can do that. You try to get through the first episode of that, and you're like, what the fuck was that? I don't even know what's going on. And because it's not very, it's not super, they don't enthrall you with a bunch of crazy, nobody's casting spells, there aren't dragons, it's a much more character and just a good story. So I had to sit through it a few times and oh, this is really good. But yeah, it's easy to become over-reliant on, well, fuck it, there's going to be this big battle, so everybody's going to love that, and finally we'll get the payoff, there you get the CG, a money shot, and that's, that'll, they can live off of that. So yeah, it leads to lazy storytelling again.
And you'll see 2 things coincide with this. Well, 3 things. The dialogue generally gets worse. And so kind of, it's really, because this is more like 1B, so it's really 2. Tyrion stops being funny. Tyrion being funny and witty was a big part of the show.
Yeah.
And at the same time, no more titties, no more sex scenes, no more orgies. Remember all that stuff? That was that fun, and because that brought it brought some like luridness to the fantasy genre, because most people are used to seeing a clean fantasy, like almost like done almost religiously, right? And when Game of Thrones brought in all the sex, it was like cool. It's set in that world, but it's still got a bit of our world in it too.
Yeah.
And people, prostitutes, and people fuck. Then someone had some problem with that, and they took all that out now. So I'm just watching. Empty. What happened to that one?
Yeah.
So the way that my friend advised me, he said, think of it that it ends at the Red Wedding. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy, and just let it go there to there, and you're good.
Oh, that'd be brutal, but yes, might make for a better story.
Yeah, well, some good stories are brutal.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you ever see a film called Funny Games?
No.
Watch Funny Games.
Oh man! All right. You're giving me a couple now. I'm gonna have to wait. Hold on. Shoot. All right. I'm gonna find a pen, or I'm gonna text you later and check on that, because it was Funny Games, and you mentioned another one that I can't remember.
Straw Dogs, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah, that one I hadn't seen either.
Not the remake, the original.
Okay. I think that's another indicator of how starved people are for just, I don't know, how poor our writing is. You notice like the extreme amount of remakes of everything. I mean, even when you see things that, well, it's 6 years old and they put a new actor in it, or they, redid it, and you're going, why was that even necessary? We just did Spider-Man like 5 minutes ago. What the fuck happened?
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's never better. It's never as good. Yeah. The only people that think it's good are people that never saw the original.
Yeah, right.
And, even then, they can be converted.
Sure. So, it was like they redid Psycho. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I never bothered to watch it because I was just insulted by the whole idea. Like, are you joking? Was there something wrong with it?
It's a perfect film.
Yeah, it's a great film.
It's a 10 out of 10. I used to run a magazine, high-end serial killer magazine, so we'd get like the best true crime writers, and we'd always do a movie review in it. And Psycho was, I think, the only film we gave 10 out of 10 to. Remember correctly.
It's a fantastic film.
It's perfect. You don't touch it. And so I had this discussion with, I was talking about how much I love the movie The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, when I first started dating her, she's like, oh, I like that movie too. And I'm like, oh, I started talking about it. She's like, well, that wasn't. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Some other one, she's like, yeah, it's called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, no.
And then I went, no, watch this. It's better.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it's better. And then she's been trying to get me to watch the new Ghostbusters.
It's,
I explained to her, like, look, one, Ghostbusters is pre-Giuliani New York.
Yeah.
It cannot possibly be the same. Even if they'd cast the same cast, very suspicious of the third Ghostbusters at this point.
Yeah.
And I think what people didn't understand about that is like how pivotal Ghostbusters was to so many young people as children. But you'd play it with your friends, you'd watch the movies. It was scary, but it was funny when you were a kid or whatever. And there was this whole culture of Ghostbusters and how cool it was, and everyone was waiting for a Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah.
And then they it is Ghostbusters, but now like this, and you're like, that's not Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson.
Yeah. That's
something else.
Yeah.
And it's not the same time and place, and it doesn't have the same sense of humor, and I don't like it. I don't like it. It took what I had, and you're saying like it's just as good. It's the same. It's a rebranding. It's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they don't understand why people get pissed off.
Yep. I feel that way about the new Star Wars movies, but very few people seem to recognize how fucking shite they are. So I'm not even gonna get into that because we could spend a whole podcast of me wanking about how terrible the what they did to my Star Wars universe. I'm now ashamed. I mean, I have lightsabers behind me, for God's sakes, right there. So it's like combat ready ones too. Like you can smack people with those. But now I'm ashamed to even be a Star Wars fan because they just mutilated the whole thing. Anyway, so, but that's the way it is. Yeah, they're trying to please crowds, and it worked. It works really well. You just CG it out and make it look right and feel right, and they go, oh, that seems good, but no one realizes their story is shit and it means nothing, and they'll probably forget about it in 20 years. But
I fell asleep during the last one. I don't think I'll be seeing the next one.
Yeah, I went begrudgingly to the last one just because I was so pissed about the first one they did, and I went, oh, whatever, I'm gonna see it once because whatever, just go see it. And I did like Rogue One, actually. I thought that was
good.
Yeah, that was oddly, like, it was like, oh, okay, we did this piece of shit, and then we did Rogue One, which was pretty ballsy and actually pretty good. And I don't know, we'll see. I hope the Han Solo movie doesn't suck, but I'm not putting down money on that. So
yeah, I think bets are firmly on will suck.
Yeah, then better to go assuming that than not. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky, but yeah, I don't expect the next full Star Wars movie to be any good. I don't know. Yeah, it's sad. I think that was such an important film trilogy in so many people's lives, and I think really it's just great films, and what they've done to them, I just, oh God, especially this last one was just so just identity politic garbage got shoved in, and it's just bad story writing beyond all the political crap and whatever. It's just a shitty story. There's just so many problems with it, and you go, what happened here? It's like one of the biggest things of all time as far as cinema goes, and they blew it. But yeah, they whatever, just fucking they throw in the things that keep people happy. So
I think the thing is too, it's to bring it back to so like, well, where do we come in? We're actors in the world too. This is our video game too.
Sure.
So it's like there are people that are making shit movies, but are we making good movies?
Right.
Or not?
Right.
And it's amazing how many filmmakers I know, and they're just sitting around, and we all have the same complaints.
Right.
And it's like, well, why don't we make a movie? Well, because it's expensive as hell, but it can be done. Where there is a will, there is definitely a way. You just have to, the scope of the film has to be plausible. And I do actually have a good idea that's been kicked. Well, I've got many good ideas, but I think I have one that we could actually accomplish. And it could be a Western. It could be a prohibition. It could be set in modern day. It's more the idea of it. Yeah.
That's probably a good idea then. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first one I've had where the setting didn't dictate the story, but you know what I mean? There's not this, there isn't good ones that haven't come from that. But the first idea I had was the ethos of the film gave birth to all kinds of possible stories just centered around this one idea.
Yeah. Well, that's
cannot divulge.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We'll talk about it sometime. Not in the public sphere. Not that anybody might actually be listening or watching at this point, because this is probably my longest podcast so far. I feel like hopefully everybody has enjoyed our ramblings, but it is too easy to talk to you. I think really it's a shame. It kills me when I meet folks like yourself and they're so far away, because I'm like, man, I would love to just go have some drinks with you and bullshit till the early hours of the evening and morning and just going off about stuff. So will do this.
Maybe I'll escape to the land where I can speak freely.
Yes.
And if I were coming there, I'd probably come somewhere on the West Coast, like California. So you never know, man. You never know. I'll definitely be visiting at some point.
Yeah, well, please do. That would be great, and then we can hang out, and we can do another podcast in person too.
Definitely.
Before I forget, so and by the way, I wanted to say, tell your girlfriend. shit. Oh, sorry, you broke up for a second. Your girlfriend, awesome voice. Oh my god, on the podcast, amazing.
Yeah.
You weren't kidding. I was like, God, I was listening. I was like, holy shit! Like she should be going to some professional, voice acting work or something, or do some video games or whatnot. Good stuff. But it's yes, and it's a great show. I think you guys do a really good job with it. I mean, I've only listened to a couple episodes so far, but I have enjoyed it very much, and I think anybody that's interested in the subject or just serial killer curious. Oh, and I believe you're doing one about Italian sort of mafiosa stuff coming up soon.
Yes, so all of May is Mobster May.
That'll be fun.
And so it's the idea of like, of course the serial killers and mass murderers are always going to be the most interesting, but at the same time you do need to break things up a bit, and we'll come back to it. And so what we're doing is Mobster May, and we're looking all at organized crime, and at this point we've recorded all those episodes right now. So the author Nate Henley, who did one of our first shows, he comes back and he talks about Al Capone and Dutch Schultz and Bonnie and Clyde. So sort of like Prohibition era organized crime, or in the case of Bonnie and Clyde, more like disorganized crime, just zipping around the car. And it's a great episode. That one's it's in 2 episodes. It's in 2 parts. Then we have a guy who writes for the Toronto Star, Peter Edwards. He's an expert on biker gangs, and he kind of gives a general overview of the modern state of biker gangs. Then in episode 3, we talk about the city of Montreal, which is sort of in Canada, a very unique place for organized crime. It's a bit like Chicago or Vegas in the States, has a really interesting history. So I talked to a corporal from the RCMP who's also a forensic psychologist. Finally, thanks to your sponsorship, we were able to do the 3-way. And so this was with Marcel Denisi, who is one of the world's eminent semioticians, and then one of the bravest men, who's probably the bravest man who's walked into my apartment, Antonio Nicasso, who was a journalist in Italy who would write about the mafia at a time where they'd kill you for that. Yeah. And you had to basically flee to Canada to get away from that. I had both of those guys on at the same time, and it was the perfect setup. There was almost no editing I had to do. No one was talking over each other. It was like we were playing a game, and it all just went perfect. That one's called Mafia 3.0, and it tracks the development of the mafia from the first part of the history to the second part, and then we talk about what it is in the 21st century, 3.0, and get into touch on the dark web a bit.
Nice. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. That is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be sweet. So I'd say with it, depending on the guest, the episodes can vary quite a bit. Sometimes I'm serious. Sometimes I'm joking around a lot. The length can vary. So I would just say go look at the topics, or maybe try a few. See, one day you'll find ones that are of a more comical, light tone. Other days they'll be deadly serious. Other days they'll be fucking disgusting. But the point is to keep it dynamic and and I don't think there's ever been a true crime show like that, because people are so concerned with how they present.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea is to be like, we can have gallows humor about this, and also be taking it so seriously that we're speaking academically about it at a level that isn't discussed on any other program you watch. So figure that out. Right. How can we be both here and here at the same time? Well, the answer is free discourse, free speech, right?
Back to that. I like it. Well, excellent. I'm looking forward to listening to those. I hope people do check you out, and thank you so much for coming on. I know it was a bit of a last minute notice, so I appreciate you being available. And I look forward to talking again soon, either online, in person. I'm sure I'll see you out on Twitter. Oh, what's your Twitter handle again?
Oh, for me personally, or for the podcast?
You could get both if you want. Your choice.
Okay, so for those who want to just follow the podcast and not be hit with my oscillating views of reality and politics, follow us at murder WT case. So the WT standing for was the murder at murder WT case, and that's pretty just about the podcast. If you want to follow me, then that's at Prof Prof Mellor. My last name. And sort of interact. People think I'm schizophrenic because they assume that I run the Murder Was the Case account. My girlfriend runs the account, but sometimes people think I'm so.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. She'll post something. I'm like, I'm not sure about that. I don't know that I agree with that. Like, dude, you having a conversation with yourself?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, there are times where I get into that. I don't always manage the Datsara account, but sometimes I do, and it gets weird. And I'm like, well, should I like my own tweet? I don't know. I mean, yes, I'm trying to get it's odd. It gets strange. I try to sign everything, at least with my name, if I'm commenting from there. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a weird modern problem. But cool, excellent. Well, so people will find you there, and yeah, well, thank you. And next time, I totally didn't. If we weren't going so long, I would get into your interest in the UFC, and it sounds like you've done some jiu-jitsu, which my people love. We should have gotten into the beginning because there's so many people who just tune in to hear the jiu-jitsu oriented guests, and I probably lose them after that point. So maybe next time we'll discuss that a little bit too.
Oh, it's a short, sad tale, but
yeah.
Let's just say I can summarize it like this. Mm-hmm. I was into UFC before it got popular. Before, I don't know what it was. It was that reality TV show that made it popular mostly, right? The Ultimate Fighter.
Well, that definitely came around. Yeah, I mean, other than that, you had to be kind of in the underground of like, oh, my buddy brought this over because it was on, he downloaded it, somewhere. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd be getting tape recorded stuff. Like UFC and Pride, because you couldn't get any of the UFC 20s at all,
right,
at the time, at least where I was living, and so I would order them from eBay and get them delivered and watching them. And so I was really into it around the age of 19 or 20, and when I went away to college, because I left the small town where I was growing up, and I went away for film for 2 years actually before I did my history degree. Yes. And I got it in my head that I could go to this MMA gym. It was the only one that I was aware of anywhere, that I could go to this MMA gym on Saturdays after partying all night on Fridays. And it was also like in a different city, and I had to take a train and like buses to get there. Mm-hmm. So by the time I show up, I'm be already a mess. And there isn't much of it to it, to be honest with you. But the story is that I remember thinking, well, people don't seem to like this anyways, so even if I got good at it, like it, I should just give up. And then fast forward to now, and I'm just sitting there going, well, now my body's all fucked up and I can't do it.
Yeah, well,
but maybe it saved me. Probably a good thing.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I've been a bit of a slouch with it myself lately, but I eventually got down to just the jiu-jitsu, and I actually found a place nearby where I just moved where we're just gonna do some open mats. But yeah, that's it's fun but tough, and I'm not gonna lie, like my new pastime of playing golf, kind of a lot more fun for me, but maybe that's because jiu-jitsu, my brain doesn't like it very much, and I was never very, very good at it. I plan to keep up with it because I would never leave the community. It's a great community, but yeah, I gotta say, worst day of golf is better than most of my better days in jiu-jitsu. It's just I don't know. Yeah, I'm not even gonna get into it. People are gonna go, oh God, Chris is losing it. He's playing golf and going conservative. I don't know. It's a slippery slope, folks. But seriously, golf is awesome. So yeah, I've been obsessed with that lately. But yeah, whole nother story. And but yeah, we'll talk about next time you're on. We'll talk about the UFC and all this. I notice you still follow that pretty well. You're probably better than me about that. I lost track when they started having more than 1 or 2 a month. So
Yeah, I mostly watch the main events.
yeah,
So the ones with the numbers.
yes,
I go to the wing place down the street and
nice.
just sit there and I fixate on it and I pick my guy and
It's a good time. I think
sure.
Oren watches it as well. So
Yeah, I've been out with him a few times.
nice.
We've gone out. We watched St. Pierre versus Bisping and
Fun.
Rose versus Joanna and Cody versus TJ. That was all on that same card. That stat card that no one cared about until it happened.
Right.
And then they realized that it was an awesome card.
Yeah.
So we watched that one. And we watched the one where Ngannou knocked out Overeem.
Ah, nice. I haven't actually seen that one yet. Yeah, that's I've missed far too many now. I've been out of it, so I need folks to enjoy it with. It kind of helps. So
That was a lot, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good cards coming up.
Yeah, good stuff.
There's a lot of people that hate on it. They're like, oh, it's not like it used to be or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. It's the same thing. There's still fighters you can get behind. Like Stipe Miocic he's a very likable heavyweight. He's he knocks guys out in the first round.
Yeah.
Sort of all American.
Yeah.
Really need to talk shit because him and he's just cleaned out the division.
Yeah.
And he's going to be fighting Daniel Cormier, right? And Cormier, there's a great story of Cormier. There's a tragedy of Daniel Cormier, right? Because Daniel Cormier would be the undefeated light heavyweight champion, except he's been beat twice by John Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But John Jones, on both occasions, may have been cheating.
Yeah, right.
But wasn't he? But was he? But wasn't he? And that torments Daniel Cormier, right? It's his, And so, but it feels like if Cormier can beat Stipe, then he completely vindicates himself.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why either guy I want to see win. And before that, I think we have Robert Whittaker, who I love Robert Whittaker, the little guy from New Zealand, who he's fighting Yoel Romero for the middleweight title. Yoel is just, do you know who Yoel is?
I do, but man, it has been so long that I could not give you specifics. Yeah, I remember seeing him fight, but I don't remember particulars.
Yeah, he looks like a heavyweight. Like he's just, there's no fat on him. It's just, it's like the whole. And the first time they fought, I was like, oh no, this guy's gonna take out Bobby Knuckles. That's what Robert Whittaker's name was. And he didn't. Yeah, he kicked him, he broke his leg or something in the first round, and Bobby Knuckles was fighting him, and I'm in the bar and I'm yelling at the TV, taking it seriously. I'm like, come on, Bobby Knuckles! And so that was, and so Whittaker won the first time, but it felt like it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't meant to be. And now a rematch, it's like he's got to do it again, or it's like the first one was a fluke. And one more I really like is I've been watching this guy Darren Till. He's a welterweight. Once again, he looks like heavyweights. Liverpudlian guy, kickboxer. He knocked out Cowboy Cerrone in like a minute or two. Yeah. And he's got this huge wingspan, huge reach, and kind of unorthodox fighting style. And he's fighting the first UFC Liverpool card. And he's going to be fighting against Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy. So someone's going to get that one.
Yeah. Good times. You're making me miss it a little bit. I'm so... I feel like there's still great fights. It's just they've watered it down by having too many events. It's very hard to keep up unless you're really on top of it. But again, if I had a bunch of fun folks to go out and watch the fights or have people come over like I used to, I'd probably be more on top of that as well. So one of these days, you make me want to fly out to Toronto just to hang out with you all. So Perhaps that will happen again someday.
My small, but my couch is comfy.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been great chatting with you, Chris, and once again, thank you so much for the support.
Oh,
and it's
absolutely.
I hope it's just the beginning, and I'm pretty confident it is.
Well, good. So, I'm happy. I'm always happy to support things that I like, and just good people doing interesting things. So, yeah, it's been my pleasure. And since I'm not doing the rollout thing here, folks, we'll just make it real brief. If you want to support the podcast, go check out dsgear.com. All sorts of hemp gear, clothing, bags, food, whatnot. Go check it out. And that's out. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am at @Datsuchris, DATSUCHRIS. And thank you. Be seeing you, folks.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.